Ladies and gentlemen, Diamond Podcasting Productions presents The Shoot, a pro wrestling podcast, with your hosts, Dan Burke and Drew McKenzie.
I guess we all can be singing Viva Las Vegas. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, whenever you're listening to this. Here, it's on-demand media. A little late this week, but at the same time, the context will still be there. Welcome to The Shoot here on Diamond Podcast Productions and, of course, the official podcast of Pro Wrestling World Talks. Which you can now hear us on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts as well. You can probably also find us on Real FM. Let's see, HD2 1046. I don't know, like one of these. Maybe remember when HD radio was a thing where you could find all these different like frequencies. Maybe that we're at that point again. Maybe that's where you're listening to us now currently. I don't know.
XM, please call us.
Yes, XM, please call us. I know that you just paid you paid Howard all that money. You can call us for a fraction. We'll take a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of Howard money. I'm your host, Daniel Burke, my co-host again. The Mac Attack.
What's up, you big, beautiful bastards?
Oh, I am fantastic this week.
Me too. It's fucking Friday.
It's Friday, which means that I can cut a little loose, which pretty much, if you can tell, I already have. And we're at a point now this Friday where we should be sitting here and being like, are we going to even watch SmackDown? And it's like, I have it on somewhat in the background, but also I have old Memphis stuff from Jerry Lawler. So, which the timing of that is impeccable. But considering what the announcement this week, that really should be a non-story, but people have made it a story. But we're also coming off of a very successful weekend in France as WWE had their highest grossing non-WrestleMania event ever, and one of the hottest crowds that in the history of the industry. Backlash was a tremendous success.
We were worried about the crowd the week before too.
We were both like, oh, yeah, we're going in this, and then SmackDown. It kind of, I was like, tomorrow won't be a fucking problem. You could just tell. You can sense it that they accepted the product, they absorbed it, they treated the talent with utmost respect. That is something that can make an event that on paper was pretty predictable be an all-time classic, one that you're going to watch over again. And as we both said last week, the main event stole the absolute show. It was a combination of the accolades of the performers and their tremendous in-ring IQ and acumen in Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles, which not only got the notice of the tremendous ravenous fans in France, but also of one Dr. Dave Meltzer. We'll talk about that later. But it's so refreshing to see a show that was not a WrestleMania, that was not a Big Four, so to speak, become now an all-time classic, where one that you're going to want to watch again, where moments you were just like, this is unbelievable. at one point, they were...
Technological differences again. Sorry.
Darn you.
Hold on. All right, we're good.
Okay.
It's always when I go to grab my phone that I knock into a wire that my shit is like, fuck you. Go fuck yourself.
Why do you
have a nice day?
Stop jerking around my chain.
Why are you such a disappointment to your mother and I?
Why are you doing this to me again? And it constantly happens. Nothing fucks with us more. And we're tech people. But nothing fucks with us more than our own technology.
So, just real quick, hold on, because it's somewhat funny. So, I'm on my laptop. It's the easiest thing to do all this on. I bring it to certain locations to do the podcast. My phone is to like a little bit near one of the monitors, and these are like movable monitors too. It's a little bit near that, so I go to grab it, and I hit one of the wires, and apparently it's such a fragile fucking connection that it just kills the monitors for like 5 seconds. And of course, the Zoom is on one of those monitors, so it's just like even more like, fuck you.
Right.
So, needless to say, you are a disappointment to your mother and I.
The same laptop that I am on is the same one that I am constantly bitching about if an episode is late because of the editing process shits the bed. Because sometimes it just doesn't like to encode the video. And I go to bed and waste 4 hours of time of thinking that, it'll just be encoding. I'll wake up tomorrow and the video will be there. Put it up on YouTube. It'll be up in a few hours.
So, funny enough, last week was the first week I did not stay up to ensure that it actually got posted.
Yes.
Because what we do is we share a drive together and we put it to the drive. I do the recording of it on my end. I send it to Dan. He does the editing. And needless to say, last week, I think I found out it was good to go because Dan had already posted it. I did not even check. So I trust you that much that I have enough faith in my computer, apparently, even though tonight has proven once again I probably shouldn't do that.
No, it's just it's exactly right, because this is this is also a work laptop. So it's like when I'm encoding, sometimes if I'm doing an episode here or something else, or another project somebody has for me, as I was doing a little work this week for Pro Wrestling World on the side, where I'm doing tickets in my queue and all that stuff. Well, I could be listening to an episode while I'm editing, and it's a multitasking situation. But the tricky part is when I have to encode a video, and it's like I have to block out 4 hours of time, and it's usually overnight. But nothing frustrates me more when I come in thinking the video was encoded, and then I go to play it and nothing comes up, and it's like, well, I have to do this now at work and have it encode and hopefully not get affected too much, because I have to work on this laptop while it's encoding. Nothing frustrates me more. But hopefully, knock on wood, it decides this week that it's like, you know what, we're going to cut you a break. We're going to cut you a break. You really haven't overworked us that much. We're going to cut you a break. Because I hate having to go back, do it over again. And it's as simple sometimes of just a simple restart of my computer that could take care of the issue. But when you're in bed, you don't know any better because you're in bed. You're not thinking about it because you're just like, it'll just be there in the morning. And then it's not. And you think to yourself, well, fuck me, I guess. End of rant. So, an extremely successful show in Europe, an all-timer, and it all has to, and nothing else happened this week. It was a very slow week in the week of professional wrestling, where it's like so much seems to happen.
I don't want to say it was a slow week. We got the
yes.
first couple matches of King and Queen of the Ring for the tournament. So
yes,
we could talk about that. I know you don't want to do it, but I'm going to touch on just two things real quick. AEW related. Let's get that out of the way now. Then we can talk about the WWE stuff. So this week at the Ring of Honor tapings, I didn't make a slide for this because Dan really didn't want to talk about this, but I do. This week at the Ring of Honor tapings, Sky Blue was apparently being severely heckled to the point of it being like sexual harassment. Visibly upset. Aubrey Edwards, to her credit, even though I don't really care for her, got security both of the venue and AEW security involved. I got the guy thrown out. Guy had a kid with him too, which I was really unfortunate.
They were in Canada though, so I mean,
blame Canada, Canada.
Yeah, it's just also the same country that she spilled my coffee. So you gotta. That's the country.
Thank you.
Things were raised on. People.
Thank you. I did touch on this real quick since I talked about it last week. Maple Leafs suck. Anyways, moving on. Moving on. Also, this week we had Adam Copeland bleeding everywhere, which just okay. I felt
why
that was
Edge. Why?
Yeah, why? But also we had Kenny in the hospital challenging the Elite to a match at the next pay-per-view, which I was like, this feels weird. You're supposedly not cleared, which we all know is bullshit since he took a bump last week. And then he's in a hospital gown. Like, what the fuck is that?
It has been announced. He announced it today, actually, on Twitch, that he is getting the surgery for diverticulitis. Now, here's the interesting part about this. 3 years ago, when he was the belt collector, he thought that he was dealing with a hernia. Turns out that it was actually diverticulitis then that flared up.
Right. Yep.
So he says he expects when he comes back, he is going to be the best physically he has been in years.
Well,
which
we'll see.
Let's hope.
Yeah,
let's hope.
The match has to happen before the surgery, I feel like, at that point, because you're going to have that long of a build for this.
I think you can, because then you could just say, if he took the bump, needs the surgery.
Oh my God! I just touched it again. God damn it!
He needs the surgery, which he needs the surgery. So do an injury angle for long term. It makes complete sense. Holy crap.
This thing is like having AIDS right now or something, man. All right. I literally just tried to move it out of the way a little bit. Just a little bit. And it's like, go fuck yourself.
My favorite part about this is it's not my fault. Like, it's just, I'm sitting here and I'm just like, doing my job.
I miss my desktop. I miss my desktop. This doesn't happen then. Or just my regular monitors, whichever. Yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be strange to have that long of a build. It reminds me, different scenarios obviously, but it reminds me a little bit of The Rock and John Cena, where you're having like a full year to do a build. A little bit like Roman and Cody, but that they were able to kind of do fill-ins for, really. But I don't know. He's talking Kenny being on the shelf for a pretty long time at this point if he goes through the surgery before having that match.
It'll be 6 months, which, that could kill heat. Because I don't know if this angle is going to be really going to carry into that. You're going to go 6 months of this?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Especially, too, with the way that the way the ratings look. Because they have seemed now to hit their ceiling again. And now it's like, that's the threshold. So there's probably going to be another threshold soon. Like, they have thresholds where for like a month they stay around this number. Then it goes down again. and then it'll stay around that number for another month. Then it'll go down again, stay around that number for a month. Same shit. Repeat the process. The problem is that this is happening at the absolute worst time, because you want to be able to sustain viewership when you're entering contract negotiations with not only Warner Brothers, but other suitors, because the exclusivity window has ended. So they can really kind of shop around what they're going to get, what they can get. The problem is that they already lost 2 streaming deals recently with DAZN and also with Mexico. I believe Univision, which cost them about $400,000, and Cornette said it. I didn't think about that, because I'm just like, well, $400,000 is not, considering they lost $35 million last year. $400,000 is almost like a drop in the bucket. But the way the Cornette looks at it is just like, okay, if they're making $150,000 a year, that means that streaming service is not getting any attention that's getting them $150,000. Like, they ended it after a year, and it was a 3-year deal at like $750,000 over the 3 years. So it's $250,000. So they just said, after giving them $250,000 for 1 year, that's too much. That's not good, considering it's a low ceiling for financially. And that company is just like, we lost $250,000 in a year on this. We're going to get rid of it because no one cares. What? We didn't get any of our money back.
Well, if you think about it this way, too, he has a point, because they could have gone back after that first year and said, hey, we don't think you're worth this money. Would you like to renegotiate?
Yes.
Instead, they're just like, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's not like they're going to pay much for, like, all they have to do is they're hosting. They're not paying for any production of it. It's just they're hosting it. And no one is paying enough to watch that. And DAZN's a big one, because that carried so many countries, and that was everything. Like, that was their whole fucking library you could think of at that point, because it was the pay-per-views and the weekly TV. And so now today I was reading that NBC is probably going to get the NBA. They're going to pay them like $2.5 billion a year. And I think that TNT can go to like 2.8 or 3 and see if but I don't know if they will, considering the fact that it's been announced that Warner Brothers is a bit of cost cutting. So they might, it depends. It depends on how much they feel that the NBA helps their bottom line. But also what's going on with Warner Brothers this week. See, it's all interesting stuff that not much happened in AEW this week, right? But their main source of TV has been going through a lot of restructuring. And I guess now both companies are kind of losing their ass, at least on streaming, because you think about what Disney's gone through in the last few years. Now, Disney, Hulu, and Max, yes, Max, are now bundling together.
I did read that this week, too. I will be somewhat interested to see how this works. As someone that has HBO through their cable provider, I will be kind of curious to see what that looks like now. Will I have to pay for it separately? Will I just, have to continue to pay for Disney Plus and Hulu and ESPN, because that's the current bundle that they have?
Yes.
Will I have to restructure something to gain this? It reminds me a little bit of when they had CBS, and then they transformed it into Peacock.
Yes.
And now Peacock Plus, you cannot get through your cable provider. You have to pay them separate. And same with Peacock, right? Like, we all know that too. And I mean, listen, like $5, drop it a bucket. Like, who cares?
Right.
With Disney Plus, you need to pay it separate. With Peacock, you need to pay it separate. With Paramount Plus, you need to pay for it separate. So I'm kind of hopeful that some of these are going to remain like, okay, well, if you have it through cable, you don't need to worry about it. You know, Max being one of them, because Max has really expanded their library over the past, I would say, since COVID, really, obviously.
Yes.
And they've just gotten better. They've added DC. They've added, I think, some of the Discovery stuff and some other shows, and they have some live events too. It's if Disney gains control of that and I have to pay separately, I'm going to be pissed. That's all I can say.
Well, the interesting part about this is that it's just because we've heard that Warner Brothers and Paramount were kind of talking merger. Like, there was so many.
Too, yeah.
There was a lot of interesting kind of things that were happening in recent months, and now it's like, okay, so this is going to be kind of one type deal. Now you wonder if ABC, if not ABC, but Disney as a whole, is going to have a say in what Max does content-wise, or who they can attain as for an intellectual property and things of that nature. Because if you're thinking about this from a number of things, one, Disney owns Marvel.
Yep.
And now Max is under with DC. So now it's like, okay, is this how is that gonna work? How is that gonna kind of, because there is an interest there about DC and Marvel being under the same umbrella type deal. It might not be a large umbrella, but it's still a rather umbrella where you're sitting there and you're just like, this is a little weird, and I'm very intrigued.
I was thinking you were to go a different direction with this conversation for a second.
Well, that's going to get brought up too.
All right, I might as well do it because I have nothing else to add to this portion of it. I think it's odd that they're going to be in one place. I don't disagree, but it's going to be like different portals. Obviously, it's not going to be something where it's like the same home screen. You see Marvel, and right next to it is DC. It's not going to be like that. I don't think. Granted, we don't know. We're just kind of making the estimations and the speculations and stuff, but I don't think they'll do it that way. However, the other factor is, my name is Tony Soprano, and I'm going to Disney World.
That does also mean that Meadow Soprano is a Disney princess, technically.
That is true. That is true. God, AJ is a prince.
Oh God.
That's my male heir.
And now the ducks at the beginning of season 1 is just going to be the DuckTales ducks. Like,
I'm sorry, I have to say this. That's a perfect point. So if anybody is an animator out there, I can make Tony Soprano in the very first episode, the pilot episode, with the goddamn ducks, and like a Disney animation, I will pay you. I don't know how much I will pay you, but I will fucking pay you. Please make this happen. All I can think of now is that episode where they did it with Peter Griffin. It's a lovely day for a pie.
Let's say though that if The Sopranos falls under that rule, would it be kind of like Goofy's World, where Tony looks kind of resembles like his neighbor, like Goofy's neighbor? If we're going like
Pete,
yeah, Pete, yeah.
Who's Goofy then? Is it Christopher?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Goofy would definitely be Chris. Like,
I feel like half the mob in Jersey is like just a different version of Pete at that point, though. Yeah, you got
they're
Pete,
all Pete.
Pete with
They're
the
all
wig, Pete with the poly wigs. Oh man, dude, I'm serious. Please, somebody do this. You have to. Dude, just post it all over our social media in the comments. We'll start making fucking posts about it. We'll get the social media team to do it. It'll be fucking hilarious.
The top FBI agent is Bonkers, whatever the fuck his name was, because he was the cop. The guy,
The guy with the glasses or Agent Harris?
Probably Agent Harris.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, and it's
yeah, probably. I think
I'm worried that
point,
fucking Dockwing Duck is going to take us down. Fuck this.
I think at that point, fucking Mickey would have to be Agent Harris. Fucking oh man, is Meadow Mini? I don't fucking know, man.
Well, no, Meadow would be if Meadow would be like in the again, we're talking about like Peter's family from Goop Troop.
Oh, that girl then. Okay, yeah, I know.
Or you did go live action, kind of like where Pocahontas and the Hercules kind of went, where they're just animated. But maybe they just add a talking parrot to be with Tony or something like that. Voiced by like Bill Burr or something. I don't know. Like
voiced by Bill Burr. Oh shit! Nice. I dig
Jesus, Tony. I don't know what the fuck you want.
Oh man. So who's Adriana then?
Oh Jesus Christ!
Right?
Oof. I mean, I can't really name everybody
I know,
just because the fact I literally, because I'm talking about cartoons. Like I've seen, of course I've seen DuckTales and maybe Darkwing Duck a few times the last like 20 years.
Yeah, no, I know.
But no, it's like I'm sitting there now. I haven't seen Goof Troop in God knows fucking how long. So and it's like the same thing with like Tailspin and that stuff. I know they exist. I just don't have the time. And it's like, I don't have the need to. If I want to watch cartoons, I'm probably putting on Family Guy or like American Dad or something.
All right. So I have one final question then at that point, because I'm not going to exhaust this conversation because I feel like we're already doing that. Is Uncle June Scrooge McDuck?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, before we move on, though, I think it'll be interesting if it happens.
Yes,
because having all of that content in one place is huge. I mean, you look at some of these things already. Like Hulu already has like the live reruns, so to speak, pretty much on lock. Like if I miss a SmackDown, I miss a Raw, I just go immediately to Hulu the next day. It's there.
It is.
And from that perspective, if I didn't know that, now you do. Same with that NXT. But a lot of that stuff, like Master Chef and like all these other popular shows, like Masked Singer, I'm sure is on there too. And there's such a lock on it, man.
They do. But also that the streaming business has also changed rapidly, considering the fact of the success that Netflix had last week with the Tom Brady roast, which was their first, I think, live event that they've done.
That I can think of, yeah.
That I can think of, which that got over huge.
Oh, yeah. I've heard it's already edited to shit.
Of course.
I haven't checked since I watched it the next day after you guys had reminded me of it. God damn, it was fucking hilarious. Gross, man. Nikki Glazer's usually crushed it. Even Jeff Ross coming out as fucking OJ was fucking hilarious, man.
I thought it was nice to finally have something that didn't feel like it was completely watered down bullshit. that they just went, all right, fuck it, we're gonna go for blood. I'm glad Tom was down for it, just because he just seems like someone. He always had like that dark, the cloak kind of mysterious, like, don't hit him too much personally.
Yeah.
But fuck, goddamn, he did not give a shit. Yeah, him and Bill. And Bill was taking every joke with stride, which was amazing. I think the only times he got uncomfortable that whole time was seeing Bob Kraft, but that's different reasons, I guess, at the moment.
His line about, not to be confused with the documentary, that shit was great. Bravo, Bill Belichick. I really want him to come out, just be like, like his normal fucking cadence at all the press conferences, smacking his lips, grunting and shit. No, he came out like a different fucking person. I was like, holy shit. But I think it was Edelman who made the joke about fucking Foxborough High. Oh, who knew that's when you're picking up your new girlfriend? It really was a great roast all around. It's even the beginning of like, all right, Tom, you're in. Sorry, Drew. You fucking kidding me? and even Drew's jokes are fucking good. I gotta say again though, Nikki Glaser absolutely crushed it, just as usual.
Fantastic. She did a fantastic job.
And I really love the joke about Kevin Hart and The Rock. That fucking tore me up, dude. You weigh 150 pounds, 155 when The Rock finishes. And all I could do is sit there and like, yep.
The crypto joke that she made with Grok awesome. About Grok was, oh my god, that's
not real money.
Me know that's not real money. I thought Tony from the Kill Tony podcast also fucking just completely destroyed. He ripped. So, I'm not because there's some things in life that you don't want to come out and you can't repeat everything that you hear on these things for reasons. But the comment that he made just like. Right.
I don't remember if it was him or somebody else, but they made this joke about Bert that I fucking started laughing so hard about how he's black on the inside because his liver's been through so much damage over the years.
Yeah, that was him. I hate Bert Kreischer with a fucking passion. I fucking hate Bert Kreischer so fucking much. He is over fucking rated party animal jack off that literally has no business being as successful as he is because he's a fucking moron. And half the shit that he's done, not half the shit, probably 3/4 of the stories he's told is probably complete and utter fucking bullshit. But somehow he was able to get Mark fucking Hamill to be in his fucking stupid movie. It made Dick, absolute Dick.
See, I guess I connect with Bert because I'm also a fat alcoholic douchebag. So I guess I connect with that a little bit.
You're not that much of a douche.
I mean, I guess I'm not a douche. And most of my stories are true.
No, yeah, exactly. Plus, you have accreditation because I was around for fucking half of them.
Well, that's the reason.
I could just sit there and be like, yeah, it fucking happened. Like,
and that's no. That's where we're gonna stop. We're not gonna talk about my goddamn stories. Thank you very much. Because
we're not. No, I wasn't talking about your stories. I'm like,
okay.
Oh, I was on a train in Russia. Fuck you. Where were you? Can't even.
He was in the Russian mafia. Yeah,
fucking jerk off.
Yeah, somehow he's in the Russian mafia. Okay, Bert.
Just like this his whole gimmick. He has to take his shirt off for these. Fuck you, dude. Like fuck you.
I was shocked he kept it on.
Oh,
I was shocked he kept it on the roast. I was like, Bert, what's going on here, buddy? You okay? They probably had a clause in the frickin' Netflix contract. Bert Kreischer must keep his shirt on.
Tom Segura actually is a funny dude too.
Tom Segura is funny.
Yeah, Tom Segura is a hilarious dude. So I'm not knocking him, but that other fucking idiot, yeah, he fucking sucks. He's fucking terrible.
Oh my god!
Like there are just certain comics out there that just like him and Dane Cook. Dane Cook after like 2007. It was just like,
oh, you mean when he went crazy? Yeah,
yeah, pretty much.
And on that note,
we stood up for him for years still too, because it was like, oh, he's from here, he's our boy, you know. And yeah, at one point that he did have some great fucking material 20 years ago, but still he had some great material at one point. Yeah, but god damn. And it's weird now because I look at it comedy and it's just, there's like different camps. It's like there's Joe Rogan and 3 guys, then there's everybody else. Like
on that note, let's talk about some Backlash, I guess.
Yes.
Start with Backlash.
Yes.
So nothing real special here with the slide anyways, but I figured we'd have all the winners. I also included Jessica Carr, who was the first woman to officiate a WWE title match. So props to her. Definite props to her. I guess just going left to right, we have the winners of the tag team match, Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga, which started off kind of funny in my opinion, with them and KO and Randy Orton. Ended up with Nick Aldis coming out to announce that since they couldn't keep it together, it was just going to be a street fight match. And then at the end of the match, where it looks like KO and RKO are going to win, which I like. Kevin Owens' new shirt, by the way, just for that.
Yes.
The introduction, as it were, of Tama Tonga's brother. I was a little bit surprised by this.
Loa.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by this because I'm not too surprised that Tonga Loa is here or in the bloodline, but it really felt like they were finally going to call on Jacob Fatu to come out.
Well, what I speculated on the last few weeks kind of got brought to the surface this week of what they're trying to do. Because there was reports that they are worried to bring him in, or because they feel like he might take some of the shine off of Solo Sikoa. And I had mentioned that in the last few weeks. I'm like, I don't know if he's why he's not debuted yet, but I speculated that I thought that it might be because they're afraid he's going to take some of the shine off some of the guys. And I said, I wasn't worried about Tama Tonga or Tonga Loa. Well, I didn't expect even Tonga.
You didn't expect Loa. Yeah, we talked about that too.
I was just like, whoa, that's a surprise. I was also surprised too that they mentioned that they were IWGP Tag Team Champions and multiple times. It literally, they were having this conversation about them. Oh, these guys are multiple time IWGP Tag Team Champions. I'm just like, what?
I mean, they do call out the competition every so often.
Bullet Club too. I was like, what? What are they doing?
As long as it's not AEW related, they will talk about it. I'll just say it that way. They'll just call it another promotion otherwise for AEW.
Yes. It'll be like that. Just half the time they don't even. They're just like, what is that? Never mind. But no, it was just a shock kind of debut. I was just like, whoa, because now they have Gorilla of Destiny. As their tag team. It's like, oh shit, their tag team division just got that much better. Yeah. Like, and they kept it under wraps because nobody expected him to be there. Like, literally, everybody's like, oh, Jacob Fatu's going to debut. Nope, didn't happen. But I also thought it was a hell of a match. We kind of both were like, going into this thing, just because we kind of had seen it before, but they did it in an entertaining fashion.
They did, yeah.
So I kind of am like, all right, that was a pretty good. That was probably my second favorite match of the night. But
yeah. I will find them in a minute, but Meltzer, as we have talked about earlier, we're going to talk about him a few times tonight. Meltzer graded this pay-per-view, I felt, as correctly as he could.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think this match, I don't have it in front of me, was about a 4.5, if I'm not mistaken.
It was like in the 4.5, 4.75 range.
I think all of them except
he was
the
very,
World
very
Championship
generous.
were. Yeah, give me a sec. Actually, let's see how quick.
Also, I also think he graded the tag team title, the women tag title match. I don't think he graded that very well either.
He shouldn't have.
No,
we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, so let's go to the next one. I kind of tried to do these in order of importance, not by the star rating.
Yes,
because obviously it was by the star rating. This would have gone very differently. I do have the star ratings. Let me just see if I got the list here. This was 4 3/4. Excuse me.
Wow. So yeah, 4.75.
Yeah. So I think that's fair. I personally don't know if I would have given it 7.5. I would have given it either a 4 flat up to 4.5. Not that anybody gives a shit about my star ratings, but just saying. So the next one is Bayley winning and retaining her Women's World Championship, or WWE Women's Championship, excuse me, against the, I guess, triple threat being what it is, Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. This was a great match for what we got.
Fantastic.
Seeing all three of them kind of shine in this match, just huge. I don't even think this hurts Naomi or Tiffany Stratton in any way.
It doesn't hurt anybody. Everybody I felt like got elevated. Even Naomi, I think, looked strong in the defeat because she kind of lost in like she kind of has the argument of just like, well, you used my own momentum, beat me. So it wasn't like she got beat outright. Nobody really lost by a finish or anything. It was just a simple roll up.
And for a triple threat, that's all you take.
That's all you really need sometimes. Like, especially when it's kind of everybody's even classed, which that's what I did feel like. Like every time I see Tiffany Stratton, I'm just like, you sure she's not a fucking 5-year, 10-year vet? Like, I keep forgetting that she's only been in this a couple of years.
I think she's 24, 25, if I'm not mistaken, too.
She's a youngin'.
Yeah.
And she's like, and it's not just because also that she's,
extremely beautiful, you could say.
Yes, extremely. Well, I'm afraid to these days, folks.
I don't think
there's
anything wrong with saying those words. If we took it to a more derogatory fashion of saying those words,
correct.
Yes.
But she's extremely beautiful. She's someone that she's a pinup model, if you want my honest opinion. And she is also turning herself into one of the most solid performers in the company, as far as not only women, but I feel like men, as far as in-ring performance and also character work. She's fucking over, too.
Yeah.
Like, everywhere she goes, she's getting some of the best reactions. And it just, I really feel like, and I've been against this for a while, but I almost feel like now the way that, and the amount of talent that they have, a women's mid-card title might have to be needed.
Who are you?
I'm just saying.
Who are you? I asked you this a couple shows ago, and you're like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
I feel like I did say that a few weeks ago, but now I'm looking at it again and I'm reevaluating the roster and the talent they have. I'm just like, I think they need it.
I think the only issue with doing so, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and I think I did this the last time too. I think it's needed, but I think the presentation would be difficult because if we look at, and I hate to use this one, the 24/7 title.
Yes.
It could be anywhere.
Yes.
And I think that's how the women's mid-card title would have to be presented as well. It could be anywhere. In the sense that, and not 24/7, but in the sense of it would have to go between brands. Because you would otherwise have to create two. And I don't think you have enough women on Raw, even moving some of them around to do that.
But the problem is now is that you have, because you look at the Four Horsewomen, and they're in that prime era now for themselves.
I respectfully, okay, hold on. That's not what you said though. You said the Four Horsewomen. I respectfully have to disagree. Charlotte keeps getting injured. Bayley, yes, I agree. Becky is, I think, on a slow turn down. Even though she is women's world champion, I think there's that slow turn down. And I have no words for the AEW cohort at this point.
Well, I mean, that's fair. I would say that Bayley is still probably out of that group the only one still probably in her legitimate prime.
100%.
And I feel like might not even have scratched the surface yet of what she can do. And I also feel like as time has gone on, you can make an argument with Bayley that she, at the end of the day, between her and Becky, might be 1 and 2 as far as what they have been able to accomplish is the Horsewomen. And
I would almost do 1A, 1B, 1C with Charlotte.
That's fair, but the thing with Charlotte is that they overpushed the fuck out of her.
That's fair.
Like, they fed her, they fed so much talent to her that it was like, why are we doing this again? And I understood she was fantastic, but I felt like that you were sacrificing so much other women, like Asuka. Jesus Christ. How many times did you just feed her to Charlotte for no fucking reason? How many times? It was like twice in 1 year at one point, because WrestleMania 34, she's entering undefeated streak. Nobody's beaten her in 3 fucking years. Up, Charlotte. Charlotte again. And then WrestleMania. Charlotte wasn't even involved in this fucking thing. It was going to be Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. Oh, Charlotte beat Asuka. It is now going to be in the triple. It's now a triple threat match. What?
No, that was their plan all along, though.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming it was their plan, but it still didn't make any fucking sense.
It didn't, but they wanted to give Becky 2 belts. So,
right.
That was as far as I know the only reason.
That was probably I understood the reasoning,
right?
But I've never really been a fan of the 2 belt system. Even when Roman did it, I was just, this is stupid, because all you did at that point, all it did was like, the Universal Championship has now merged with the WWE Championship. So why is Undisputed still? So why is the Universal Championship still like involved in that? Like, it shouldn't be. He merged. The titles are merged, so it should just be the Undisputed WWE Champion. Universal shouldn't be being involved in this anymore. But no.
But why do that when you can just have a long title name?
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, I don't think we have anything else to say on this match. I do agree, though, that Bayley is in like her own little renaissance era at this point, I feel like. Again, just kind of in order of importance here. I know the next match on the card was not this one. But we're still going to focus on this one first. The team of Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, the new women's tag team champions, defeating the Kabuki Warriors of Asuka and Kairi Sane. I'll let you go first.
Well, Asuka, it was confirmed this week that she has been lingering with an injury. She made it through WrestleMania. She made it through Backlash.
Yes.
She is now going to probably get surgery because her knee is pretty much, she's been lingering on with this for months, and she has been, so I'm assuming that kind of limited what she could do in the ring, because they're trying to protect her. So I will give that kind of like an assist.
Okay.
There were moments I was just like, but at the same time, I expected it. I don't. The problem is,
say it like it is, man. Just say it like it is.
The problem I have is that I don't know if it's going to be able to be fixable with Jade. I don't know if you can sit there and say, oh, we can look past a lot of this stuff. You really can't. And I think she's a star. I think she's fantastic.
She's absolutely a star. I'll say that.
But why is it every time? Why is there every match? There's a fucking problem. There's an issue. There's something. There's something that I'm just like, There's nothing. There's nothing more in this world that I want to see her have an elevated spot. I understand that she's still just getting used to the repetitiveness of it. She's just trying to get better with this. And I understand why they're doing this way, to get her feet wet, to put her with somebody. And this is all something I would have done a long time ago. So when you brought her in, I would have said, just put her in a tag team or put her as someone's heater and just let her watch from the sidelines, get a feel of everything. And I feel like they have been able to protect her. I felt like, though, this match a little bit, I was like, oh, it's not protecting her.
Well, listen, I think she got a little exposed at certain points. I think there is a little bit of recovery at certain points as well. Specifically, the spot at the end with her and Kairi Sane to finish the match showed her athleticism and her power, because she absolutely manhandled Kairi Sane.
Yes.
The two tosses to get her into position.
Yes.
You're not going to see anybody else do that.
No.
I don't even think Bianca Belair would do that at this point.
It was an excellent recovery. I think that was one where I was just like, okay, I can forget something. Like, that brought it up for me, where I was like, okay, I can look past a lot of the other stuff, but how long am I going to be able to look past it?
So let's actually stop there for a second. You'll probably find out when you watch SmackDown, because she has a one-on-one match tonight as part of the Queen of the Ring qualifier. Yeah, exactly. So I will preface this with, I do not have the full bracket for the women. They only released half of the bracket, which really was just the Raw side. And trust me, trying to find these brackets was incredibly painful. I will tell you that right now. So tonight I'll just run a preview again. If you're listening to this another day, you're like, "Shit already happened, guys." Yeah, we know. Unfortunately, we're recording.
We know
while SmackDown is on the air. So I'll just go through the matches, just so we've talked about them. Then we'll go back to Backlash in a minute. But Naomi versus Nia Jax as part of the Queen of the Ring. Jade versus Piper Niven, which I don't hate. Piper Niven is very safe in the ring. Piper Niven is also very big, so Jade will have, I think, a lot going on here that could help her out.
Yes.
Bianca Belair versus Candice LeRae, also for Queen of the Ring. Tama Tonga versus Angela Dawkins. So when I show the graphic later, it actually is going to show Bobby Lashley and Tama Tonga. Bobby Lashley is apparently injured. That was announced earlier today. So even though you're going to see it on the graphic in a little bit, it is going to be Angela Dawkins versus Tama Tonga, also for King of the Ring. Randy Orton versus AJ Styles for King of the Ring. That, in my opinion, if it's not, should be the main event of SmackDown. But we'll obviously see when Dan and I get to watch it. So that's, I don't hate Jade versus Piper Niven. I think that's a safe match for both of them. They can both kind of shine in that match, especially with Piper Niven being a bigger opponent. Jade Cargill versus Candice LeRae is almost laughable. Well, it is because I'm fucking laughing.
It is.
I think this match, for what it was at Backlash, is okay, but there's some definite botching in this match that really, really kind of made it a lot less than it could have been. So I didn't mention it for Bayley versus Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton, but Dave Meltzer gave that a 4.5, which I think is a pretty damn good score for what it was. Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair versus Asuka and Kairi Sane, the Kabuki Warriors for the Women's Tag Team Championships, got a 3 stars.
Generous.
I think it's a little generous. But moving on to the World Heavyweight Championship match, Damian Priest, the champion, versus main event Jey Uso. I will say that this got a 3.5 stars from Dave Meltzer. We'll start with that since it's right in front of me. I didn't hate this, but it just felt like it could have been more.
We just got done with a title reign of 3.5 years where every defense, there was always like outside interference. And that finally ended at WrestleMania. But now the leader of the Judgment Day is in the same exact position that Roman Reigns is in and using the exact same fucking tactics to keep his title. And I'm kind of sick to death of it.
Hold on. There's a difference, though, that I want to make sure we talk about real quick when you say
the fact that he didn't want interference, yes.
Correct. So Damian Priest did not want anybody to come out for this match. That's not what happened, but that's what he wanted. So I give the credit there for the storytelling aspect of him not wanting people to come out, but them still doing it. And we can talk about after the match in a few minutes. But Roman, on the other hand, almost expected it. So yes. I think that's where the storyline difference is, the storytelling difference, I should say. And that's, it's unfortunate that was the interference. We used to say that during every fucking title defense Roman Reigns had. But with this, it's just, even with or without the interference, I just felt it could have been more.
Yes. No, that's fair. Yeah, it's just I just felt like it underwhelmed. Like I wanted it to be more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a part of me wants Jay to also win a title eventually. I understand why he didn't win it this time, because it's like, this Damian Priest thing. I want to let this kind of settle for a bit. I want to figure out how his reign is going to go. Apparently, though, he is not going to be defending the title at the Queen and King of the Ring show in Saudi Arabia.
Well, that's bullshit.
That was kind of reported today.
So, real quick, I know why. I have a spoiler for later when we do the scrolling. It's on the Pro Wrestling World, on Facebook right now. Somebody had posted it about 15, 20 minutes ago or so, probably an hour ago at this point, when SmackDown started. I'm not going to spoil it just yet, though.
Okay.
But the WWE whatever undisputed championship, it has been announced that it will be defended at King and Queen of the Ring. So if you didn't read it yet, I'm not going to spoil it just yet. Spoiler: you get a first reaction from Dan of that match, and that's going to be fun. I just don't think there's anything else to say about this match. It underwhelmed. I 100% agree with that. Jay is going to be World Heavyweight Champion one day, but for those that kept score from last week, Dan and I went a perfect 5 for 5 on this pay-per-view in terms of picking who we thought was going to win. So I want to make sure we say that now before we get to the main event, because we both feel the same way. We both feel that Jey Uso is going to be our world champion at some point. It's just, it kind of sucked that this was his first chance.
Yes.
For that belt, at least, not being a world champion, but first chance of 2024, number one, and first chance at the world heavyweight title, as it were, and it just underwhelmed. And then the extracurricular after with Judgment Day kind of fighting against each other because they wanted to beat up Jey Uso, which just, I felt stupid. But we'll talk about that in the next segment a little bit as well. The main event, however, the phenomenal one, AJ Styles challenging the undisputed WWE champion Cody Rhodes in the main event for that belt. Easily the best match of the night. Easily the strongest reactions of the night as well. Maybe only second to Jey Uso, if anything. But when the music turned off for Cody's song, they kept singing it. They were singing in the phenomenal one for AJ Styles in French, which I guess we found out later, obviously, because it's in French, which Dan and I do not speak.
No.
And I just have to say, again, there's a picture right below Cody that I posted on this slide of Jessica Carr, first woman in company history to officiate a WWE world title match. So kudos to her. She absolutely deserves it. This match and this reaction also from the crowd, which we touched on earlier, legit gave me goosebumps. It was that good. WWE, we talked about this last week actually. I feel like this was their answer to Danielson and Ospreay.
Yes.
We talked about that last week. And it fucking delivered.
It did.
And they
Without question.
absolutely needed it to. And their first main event post-Roman Reigns, as it were, and post-WrestleMania, they fucking needed it, and it fucking delivered. And I will let you speak right after I throw this out there as well. This is the first time in a while that Meltzer has done this, and for the WWE anyways. 5-star match, Cody Rhodes defeating AJ Styles to retain the championship.
I was rather surprised Dave gave it 5. I was expecting like a 4.5 or 4.75.
Same.
But to Dave's credit, congratulations, Dave. You're finally with it.
You're finally off the Kool-Aid, Dave.
Yes,
good job.
Off the Kool-Aid, Dave. Great job. Wait. Will Ospreay has gotten out of bed. He just got 6 stars. Fuck. The thing about this match that to me it literally everything that I had wanted it to be is exactly what it was. Like all the near falls, all the counters, everything. Like everything that happened in this match, I was like, yeah, this is perfect. Even using one Crossroads to beat him, I was a big fan of. Like sometimes you just one finisher, that's all you need.
Well, I mean, he just hit the Cody cutter too, but
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
No, and that was a sick Cody cutter too. It was like
Yeah,
right off the top.
yeah.
Like,
I give AJ the credit for that one, honestly, because I think Cody overcommitted, and you could see AJ kind of like backpedal a few steps.
Yes,
Yeah.
AJ sold that and made that. He did. He was a few inches off, and then AJ somehow just was able to rescue it. I was happy that AJ was able to remind everybody of just how fucking good he is. And and that I felt like was the mission of this matchup. I might not win, but I'm going to remind everybody how goddamn good I am. And surprisingly, this is the first 5-star match of his career.
I did read that, and I could not have been just that much more surprised. I think it's been well documented my distaste for Dave Meltzer, but I don't always pay credence to the ratings. And we've talked about this numerous times, whether it be on the show or off the show. I don't pay a lot of credit to that. I think Danielson and Ospreay getting a 6.5 is a little extra. Just fucking saying that right now. But I also feel that it discredits a lot of matches to not give them 5 stars, like Roman and Cody to it this year's WrestleMania. I thought that should have been a 5.
Right.
And to see Dave kind of do this full circle and give this match a 5-star, and to learn it was AJ's first, I was like, wait, what?
It was, even if he didn't include the TNA stuff, I was surprised that he didn't rate anything 5 stars when he was in New Japan. He was IWGP champion, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
And he didn't give him any of that. I was surprised. I'm like, wow. But hey, I'll give it to Dave at least, though. He was able to at least look at this objectively and not be biased. He gave 2 matches above 3, actually, above a 4.5, which, got to give him credit. At least he's observant. At least he understands, okay, I have to look completely unbiased here.
I think this match specifically, obviously since we're talking about it, number one, but talking about Dave, I think that this match had a little bit of everything that wrestling enthusiasts, maybe not the everyday casual fan, but wrestling enthusiasts would have enjoyed. It had a little ground pound. It had a little flying. It had some of the finishing moves or reversals to those moves. It had kind of like MMA grappling. It had submission moves. It had a lot of everything. And Michael Cole actually called it out too. He's like, both of them have an amateur wrestling background as well. And that was the perfect shout out because anybody that watched the Cody Rhodes documentary from last year knows that. He was in high school and he was all state. So to have all of those things in this match, I think that's truthfully, especially a guy like Dave who has that kind of taste for those things, it is potentially why he would have probably and did rate this a 5-star match.
Yeah, I think that has everything to do with it, but I just am so surprised that, again, it was like, you mean you didn't tell me all the stuff that he did with like Daniels and the Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, that 3-way match they did in TNA was one of the best 3-way matches I have ever seen in the history of the wrestling industry. Fantastic. That match should have gotten at least 5, maybe even in a 6 category. And he never gave it 5 stars. It's like, how?
Ospreay live from the bathroom taking a 7-star piss.
Yep. Oh, he's brushing his teeth with Colgate. 6 stars. 6 stars. Fucking shit. Really?
Ah, damn.
But no, it was. I'm glad at least he realized. Okay, yeah, this is 5 stars.
Absolutely. I didn't watch too much of the press conference after. Neither
did I.
A lot of French. I did catch it. I didn't remember a lot of it. I just want to say this before we kind of move on to Raw and the next part of the WWE segment. But kudos to WWE. Successful 2 shows in France, with SmackDown being the first show, Backlash being the other. I think everybody probably knows that at this point, Triple H posted to social media about SmackDown and how people's phones were getting alerts that it was too loud in the building, you might suffer permanent hearing damage. The camera shaking before the main event. This crowd was so into this. It was really great to see, especially, as I said earlier, we said it last week that we were worried. We were worried if the crowd was going to be into it or not. And my God, did they prove us wrong. And I'm super happy that they did.
Because sometimes you're going over into those crowds, you're just like, I don't know what the hell they're going to be like. And a part of me now is like, because then you had what happened in Hartford on Monday when the crowd was just, at certain points just like non-existent. And sometimes I'm like, oh God, they should just be in Europe all the time. Fuck it, just be a European company and just deal with those crowds because they're so vibrant, so much fun to watch. But then you watch on Monday and they're in Hartford and it's like everybody's sitting on their hands for half the show. Like, what the fuck?
Speaking of which, let's just jump right into that. So I don't have a picture for Raw. I have a picture for King and Queen of the Ring, which Raw really is the kickoff to that at this point. We've got some matches they've already booked for that. We'll talk a little bit about that. But obviously we have the bracket. We did not have a SmackDown bracket that was posted even before today's SmackDown. Still was not posted. So we only have the Raw side. I did mention the SmackDown side a little bit earlier. We do have the full bracket for the men. I will focus on this a little bit first since this was the bulk of the matches. We'll talk a little bit about other things that happened during Raw as well. But starting just from the bottom, we had Jey Uso advancing in, I thought this was a pedestrian match, honestly, for Jey. So I'm not going to focus too much on it. I don't even really remember the placement of these matches, so I'm just going to start with the men, obviously, if you couldn't figure that out. I really didn't expect...
I know Sheamus and Gunther.
We'll talk about that later. So, that was the main event for Raw. I was a little surprised they didn't do all 4 matches for both on the same night. But I guess
it's too much wrestling, pal.
It's just too much wrestling, pal. But it's
not
3
that he doesn't say anymore.
But the thing is, it's 3 weeks out, so it does give them a little leeway to do this. So
right.
That's part of it. The next match in the men's bracket was Ilya Dragunov versus Ricochet. Goddamn, if Gunther and Sheamus was not the main event, this easily could have been.
Yes.
What a fucking match.
Yes.
For those that obviously don't know, I'm very big on Ilya Dragunov. I would not be surprised if him and Gunther have a great feud for a belt at some point in WWE, which has already happened in NXT UK. Both looked very different back then when that happened. Gunther was still Walter and still very, I'll just say, husky.
Mm-hmm.
Dragunov was definitely not as built as he is now. But Dragunov, very, very fucking talented. Ricochet, very, very upset at the end of this match, even posting on social media. So we'll see how that rebounds. Kofi and Mysterio did not happen this week, so that's why that's blank. And the main event, also the last match for the men's qualifying for Monday Night Raw, was Sheamus and Gunther Part 3. For those that did not catch this on social media, I want to touch on this real quick. Sheamus posted that there will be no Part 4. And if you caught the picture of his chest at the end of this match, you know why.
Looked like hamburger meat.
That's being nice, I feel like.
Yeah. You got to worry about that stuff because that's... you look at Kofi Kingston's chest.
Yeah.
You got to worry about that stuff. That could cause some permanent damage. Especially just because Gunther's chops are just... There's Kenta Kobashi, and then there's like Gunther. It's just like slap. You're like, oh God. Like Kenta Kobashi, I feel like that if I ever took a chop from him, I would not live to tell another tale. But I think they're going to set up, and from what I'm, and Meltzer theorized this, and I hate to agree with Meltzer, but this is a very good point. He brought up that if Dragunov defeats Gunther in the semifinals, that would make Dragunov a star overnight because of how the last 2 years with Gunther, 2 years plus, this main roster has gotten to know this is a bad dude. He just lost he lost at WrestleMania, but he's somebody that can win this whole King of the Ring thing.
So,
which
you said semifinals. I just want to clarify that the way the bracket is set up, it would actually be the finals at King and Queen of the Ring.
Oh, jeez.
So next match for Jey Uso in this bracket is actually against Dragunov.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, and
I'm really tough.
I'm like pausing and hesitating here because, as I said, I'm big on Dragunov. I'm also big on Jey Uso, but I just feel that
I'm big on Gunther.
And I'm big on Gunther too. Yeah, but I feel like there's no inherent benefit with Jey Uso versus Gunther. There is very much a benefit to tell that NXT story with Gunther and Dragunov in Saudi Arabia at the PLE. I have to say it. I just have to. It's gonna be huge no matter who it is. I'm gonna tell you that now. I'm gonna tell you though, it's gonna be Gunther, and it's either gonna be Jey Uso or Ilya Dragunov.
It's tough though because you look at with the Gunther situation, especially because do you feed him this quick to somebody else, or do you want to rebound him as a top heel still? So him winning the tournament, so he's King Gunther. And now that also kind of puts him back at the forefront to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship, whoever that is, even though I firmly expect, especially you have Bash at the Berlin coming up. Bash at Berlin, not Bash at the Berlin. I don't know why the hell I added the there, but forgive me. And then you have Clash at the Castle coming up too. So is Drew McIntyre going to be able to win the title in Scotland? And then are they just going to say, fuck it, it's going to be Gunther and it's going to be Drew?
Well, funny you mentioned Drew McIntyre. So this also happened on Monday Night Raw. For those that actually don't know, we'll talk a little bit about this for the women, but we already kind of mentioned it with Asuka being hurt. Asuka was planned to be in Queen of the Ring. We'll get to that when we talk about Queen of the Ring. Drew McIntyre, however, was also supposed to be in the King of the Ring tournament. Supposedly not cleared. Did not look like that was the case later on when he came out, but supposedly not cleared. Jey Uso took his place and advanced over Finn Balor. Later on in the night, we'll talk about that before we get to the Queen of the Ring as well. He's shown leaving and CM Punk arriving. So CM Punk goes down to the ring, makes a promo. Part of the promo is, why doesn't somebody at him on social media? Which, if you haven't checked social media, Pat McAfee did, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Has a picture of CM Punk at Drew McIntyre. Come back, CM Punk is waiting for you, or something to that effect. However, nothing develops, so still adding the fuel to the fire there for that promo from CM Punk in Hartford, which supposedly he was locked in Stamford over the weekend. Who knows? I like the fact that Punk also went with a Gordie Howe reference, saying to bring back the Whalers. I think that was the loudest they actually got for the evening when they mentioned to bring back the Whalers.
Yes.
you know, they also bring up the choking thing is just gratuitous at this point. And I love how the AEW apologist is like, see, WWE does it too. It's like, just shut up, will you? Like, it's CM Punk. What do you expect?
Let's all not get worrying.
Yeah,
okay,
let's not get worrying, please. Please, let's not get worrying. The rest of the night, though, is pretty much King and Queen of the Ring. I think that was really the only part of the night that really wasn't, aside from walking past on his way to the ring, was, CM Punk bumping into Alpha Academy. Which actually, no, they were in this. They're in this too. So it was, I believe.
Oh, he made the
Chad
he made the Toronto comment too. I think to one of the backstage interviewers.
Yes,
like, how about the Bleeps?
Jackie Redmond. Jackie Redmond also posted that on social media. Like, shut up. No. We love Jackie Redmond. There was another match. I forgot about this one as I scroll down in the results. Big Bronson Reed versus Chad Gable. This one broken up by Sami Zayn and just them fighting each other. So one of the first matches announced for this PLE.
La 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 la.
Yeah.
La 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 la. Jets suck.
That came out of nowhere.
Because we were talking about the Maple Leafs earlier.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden the Maple Leafs come up again.
Yeah.
And I was just like, la la la. Jets suck.
So one of the first matches announced for King and Queen of the Ring is a triple threat match: Sami Zayn, Chad Gable, and Big Bronson Reed for the Intercontinental title. Backstage after this, we're trying to get more people in the Judgment Day, apparently, is Dominic Mysterio introducing Damian Priest and gang to Carlito. I don't think that's going to go anywhere, but who knows. Becky Lynch came out, made her promo as well. Forgot about this. She's interviewed by Michael Cole. Next match announced for King and Queen of the Ring is Liv Morgan and the man, Becky Lynch. Okay.
Did you see the photos of Liv Morgan with the purple bandana,
I did,
blue bandana
with like a
pocket?
quarter inch poking out and being like, oh my god!
Very, very subtle storytelling. Very subtle. You have to give them credit. Like, it's just these little Easter eggs sometimes. You're just like...
I don't disagree. I just, I think it's those Eli fans, as it were. But that was pretty much it, except for Queen of the Ring. So Queen of the Ring, we did not, just like the men's, we did not get one of the matches, which was Shayna Baszler and... God, I can't... Zelina Vega, excuse me. I don't know why I was blanking on her name, but we didn't get that match, just like we didn't get Kofi and Mysterio, so look for that probably sometime next week. First round bye, as it were, I guess. But we did get some of the other matches, most of them. We had Io Sky versus Natalya, which Natalya looked great in this match for what she was supposed to do.
Right.
I give her actually a lot of credit because I was really like, wow, she might fucking move on at first. First half of the match before Io kind of took over. The next match, so this was the one where originally Asuka was supposed to play her role against Lyra Valkyria. Instead, and I guess it was a good segue for obviously Damage Control, instead Dakota Kai took her place. Unfortunately, not enough to win the match, so Lyra Valkyria moves on. And then I don't know what to say about this match. Zoe Stark versus Ivy Nile. Two women that really needed it. I'm going to tell you that now. Zoe Stark really has not done much since her feud with Trish Stratus, as it were, but really Becky Lynch. She needs this. Her and Shayna really aren't doing much at this point.
Yes.
I know they're still on television, but it's not the same Zoe Stark that we've come to know, especially that from NXT.
Yes.
Ivy Nile kind of needs this too. She's a little bit newer, at least on the main roster, so she doesn't need it as much. But it just feels like that's kind of going to be a quick window to close, unless you could, do more with, whether it be Alpha Academy and try to get Maxine away from them or God knows what. But Zoe Stark advances. So Io Sky will take the winner of Shayna Baszler and Zelina Vega, and Lyra Valkyria and Zoe Stark will compete whenever it is in the next round. And that's really it for the Raw side of the Women's Championship, or Women's Tournament, excuse me. But I don't know, like, how did you feel about all these matches on the women's side?
I mean, it's tough because you don't want to and people are probably like, what do you mean it's a wrestling show? I remember hearing that they were going to do all these matches on Monday, and I was just like, that sounds way too much.
Yeah. I agree.
Just because what people need to realize is because I hear it all the time with all these charts of how many actual minutes wrestling were in this program.
Yeah, I know.
Here's something that people need to realize. And I think I've said it many times, not just on this program, many other programs. I've said that it doesn't fucking matter sometimes about wrestling on TV. A lot of the times, and you go back to a lot of the TV that was done back in the 70s, the 80s. They didn't give away their best matches on TV. They wanted people to go to the live shows because it was all about selling tickets. TV back then used to cost them money.
Are you trying to segue early or something, man?
No, I'm just saying.
I just think it's funny that we're talking about this now, given the next segment, but I got you.
But I'm just trying to state to people, because you hear about it every week. There's always a chart some asshole has up. I'm just like, Raw only had 35 minutes in a 180 minutes program of wrestling this week, of in-ring action.
Raw also has like an hour and a half of fucking commercials. So what's your point?
Yes,
like,
which they make their money from that, and they would also rather do promos to builds for PLEs, because that's where they really make their own money. PLEs is their number one financial moneymaker because of sponsorships, live ticket gate, considering the fact of, you look at what just happened with Backlash, how that was one of the highest grossing events in company history. And they treat the PLEs with respect too, because of the press conferences after. TV is meant to build for the PLE. TV, back in the 90s, we all watched Superstars and Challenge. It was a fucking commercial for an hour. Because they would tell you where they're going next. They would have all these local promos for, we're going to be in Boston at 1:00 on Saturday. And the two guys that are going to face off is Hulk Hogan and Earthquake. And they would do their little local promos for Boston. And that was the whole goal, for you to go out, spend money for them to watch the show. And when the pay-per-view model came in, it was all about, we got to get to the pay-per-view. And that's the way they treat television. They're not, because you can be like other people, where in the last 5 years you've given away some of your best stuff on free TV, quote unquote. And then no one, and then only your hardcore fans, about an eighth of what you usually watch of every week, they're the ones buying the pay-per-view. And so that model is, and it was funny because Meltzer had to come out with the negative aspect of it this week of, well, it was one of the lowest selling pay-per-views of WWE of all time, in a model that really has not existed for them in the last 10 years. They could give a shit if 100 people buy the pay-per-view from them, because they're going to take that $60 or $70 or wherever how much it is, and they're just going to be like, well, this is money we didn't expect. Because
that's the thing. Who buys them?
Yeah, exactly. Like, when you can get the commercial version
for $5.
Peacock. I think it's gone up to like 6 or 7 now. It's going to go up again.
Whatever, man. It's
still a bargain,
yeah,
compared to what we were paying for just for the pay-per-views back then.
I mean, how much? If you equate this to, like, I don't know, we'll just say like 98 off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Even later, actually, to be honest, but still, just say like 98, 2000. You're spending $50 to $70 on a pay-per-view, PLE, whatever.
Yes.
If you talk about now, because back then it was one fucking night, now it's 2 nights in WrestleMania.
Yes.
You're going to be paying $120, $140 for both nights.
Yes.
You're not going to play a flat fee, or a fat fee, I guess, really, too, for that. You're just not. You might get a discount of like $10, but otherwise they're going to tell you to go fuck yourself. And I think this needs to be said. We don't have Peacock. The network still has their fucking streaming service for those people. So if you go out and do that, it's like $14, $15. If you have other streaming services that will carry it, which, let's be real, they exist, we've discussed this, then you might get it for a different price too. But nobody is calling their cable company tomorrow to be like, hey, I want to pre-order fucking Backlash or King and Queen of the Ring or anything else. They're all going to look for an alternative to pay less. No one's going to pay full price anymore.
No one is doing that. So him saying that, it's like, look,
yeah,
they don't
and the
care.
people that take that, what he says, and like, oh, well, you guys sold shit. It's like, they don't fucking need to worry about it.
They don't. It was probably watched in the millions anyways.
Exactly.
Just because of word of mouth, even if people wanted to skip it. There was probably some people that were watching it, hardcores like me, that were like, you got to watch it just for this fucking crowd. Plus, AJ and Cody killed it. Like, you got to watch it just for that.
Listen, it wasn't a bad pay-per-view.
No, it wasn't. It was not a bad pay-per-view. Was it predictable? Yeah.
Well, like I said, we went 5 for 5, but at the same token, who gives a shit?
Exactly.
Was the match quality good despite the predictability? Yes. 100 times, yes.
It was funny with because I was watching I watched I watched most of the show in the living room, my apartment, and because Steph was sick, so she was in bed most of the day Saturday. So she got up around the main event between Cody and AJ, and so she's just watching it going back and forth, and she's just like, I hate that. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I hate the 2 counts. Because then it just keeps going on and on forever and ever. This match, I just want this match to end. I'm like, oh, God. I'm like, yeah, honey, it's a false finish. I'm like, they happen in wrestling all the time. She's like, I know, I hate it. Because she wants every match to end within 30 seconds because she hates it. But,
I don't have an audio clip for Stephanie, so I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. But it's funny to me of just like how dumb that people sound when it's just like lowest bought pay-per-view ever in a model that they have clearly not given a shit about in the last decade.
It's not about buys anymore.
It's not.
It's about total count, total view, because that's what produces the money now. Because let's be real, right? any commercial that Peacock plays and that gets a view then turns into revenue for them, which they then give the percentage to WWE. They're also giving them part of the percentage of the prescription anyways when any of that content gets looked at. So for me, I think it's very comical that those people, that subset of fans, AEW fans, I guess I should say at that point, that is like, oh, your pay-per-view buy rate. That's not their model anymore. That's still an AEW model. That's still a TNA or an NWA model. That model no longer applies to WWE the same way that it applies to them. It just doesn't.
And if you think about it, the numbers that I've heard, because I heard it's in the thousands of like a couple, like it's in the 3,037. They did more buys than that last TNA pay-per-view. So, like I'm fucking
but
worried.
that's their model. That's exactly what I'm saying. Model. Yeah.
But him saying, like, oh, they sold better than what TNA did by the thousands.
Again, it really should go by views. Whether it be a view of their social media accounts for all the videos that they post, whether it be views on YouTube of the matches, because they do post them eventually, or just views on Peacock, or a combined number of views. Like, I don't really care, because that's the number to look at. It's not about the pay-per-view buy rate anymore for WWE. Like we just said, it is for TNA, AEW, all those other ones that don't have a streaming platform the way WWE has it. But now that WWE does have that, no one gives shit about pay-per-view buy rate for them. Nobody.
WWE looks at it now with the way that the industry has gone. They sold the rights to the pay-per-views and they sold the rights to WrestleMania for a cool $200 million a year. And they're probably going to get way more in a few years when their rights fees are up because WrestleMania is a hot commodity now. And someone is going to be like, we'll give you $1 billion for the pay-per-views.
So, good point. Let me ask the question because you probably know the answer to this. And if you don't, we'll have to look it up together and that's fine too. Do you know when the deal with Peacock is up?
I believe 2025.
Okay, so a year. So
yes.
So let's talk about that just for a cool second, right? Before we even touch on that, let's also talk about the fact that it was announced this week that Raw has been renewed for the final months of their USA contract to grab them from the end of this year going into next year when they go to Netflix.
Yes.
If on top of that, the Peacock deal is up next year, we don't know when, we're also speculating because Dan's not 100% sure, which is fine, but we can still talk about this in the sense that if Peacock loses them, how much more money is Netflix going to offer them, especially now that they have live platforms that they're going to do, like we just saw this past week with the roast of Tom Brady? Can you imagine that deal?
They'll probably double it. So they'll probably throw them another $500 million just for the pay-per-views. So then you're looking.
I mean, they might give them a cool bill at that point too.
A cool bill. So between both, they would get $500 million for WrestleMania and for the whole package, and that's the library included, and then another $500 million for on top of the $500 million they're already going to make annually for Raw. Yeah. So that's a cool $1 billion, and that's not including the deal that you did with CW. That's not including USA giving you probably another $250 million every year for SmackDown. So you have your it's just the wealth is being spread. Let's just say that. And that's just on your TV money. That doesn't include, your merchandising. That doesn't include your live gates, all that stuff. Because they are just continually smashing records with all their attendance. And it's not just, and it's weekly TV, it's pay-per-views.
That would be free advertising for Netflix too.
Oh, without
You
question.
go in, you see all the Netflix advertising around the fucking arenas and shit.
Raw,
It's just crazy.
There was somebody was complaining. I think it was Meltzer who said that I'm surprised that they didn't get more for the 3 months from USA. Well, they were kind of in a rock and a hard place because they were going to be off in 3 months. And you kind of needed to just maybe throw a bone and just say, okay, we'll do it for 25 million. Plus,
I mean, for 3 months, I think that's a pretty fucking sweet deal.
Honestly. It's a sweet deal for everybody. It's a sweetheart deal.
It is.
And they don't need the money. They're just looking at it from just like, okay, it's a stopgap. It gets us to where we need to be. Plus, I'm wondering too if this was a bit of a fuck you to AEW to drive down their rights fees as they are.
That's a good point.
As they are entering their window of rights fees. And they're just like, well, Raw just went for $25 million for the. I could just see him just seething. Yeah, because there is that question now if they're going to be on WB with Warner Brothers, just because of the fact that Warner Brothers is looking to. They're in so much debt. They're like $50 billion is a hole in debt, and their CEO David Zaslav, his bonus is built on how much money they can get rid of off their debt, off the books. So you wonder.
Start with Tony.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's not like they're paying him a lot, anyways. I think they're only giving him like 50-something million. If they don't have to pay TBS and TNT may enter a category now, though, where they're just going to stick with syndication, and they're not going to. They might throw some money at baseball. They still have NHL. As of now, they still have NBA, even though the NBA deal, I think, if NBC is throwing that much money at them, and then NBC, I think everybody wants them to go back to NBC because we want to hear that music again. That's a big one.
Yep.
But who knows? I don't know what is going to happen with AEW with their rights deal, even though that it's fastly approaching. We're already in May, and I think it's up in the end of September, beginning of October. So they're closing in.
Wow, right in time for the 2024-2025 season, no less.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. They need to make that deal now. Then at that point,
especially considering. Their networks are going to do their upfront soon. And that's when you go to the advertisers at like these big pressers and you showcase what your networks are going to be doing for the next year. And so that's a time where you're out there pretty much promoting. We're going to have this on this night. These actors are going to be involved in this project. We have this IP that we're bringing in, and if you lose Warner Brothers, you don't announce a deal. Are you going to be able to you're not going to be able to be involved in one of those upfronts with another network in that much short amount of time. Because if Warner Brothers is going to give you what you want, I don't know anybody else is going to give you what you want elsewhere. Because WWE, people will watch it. But if you go to a network less than Warner Brothers, TBS, TNT, True TV, where the fuck are you going to go? Like, where are you going to go at that point? Because the media circle now has gotten so shrinked. It's shrinked. all these mergers now, like Fox is some parts of Fox is a part of Disney actually.
ESPN too.
Yeah, ESPN's a part of Disney. FX is a part of Disney.
Yeah.
And can't go to HBO. They're owned by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers.
Well, you know what they could do. I don't know who they're part of anymore, but they could follow Sunday Night Heat and go to Sci-Fi.
I believe that's under. When they're not producing Sharknado.
That was my fucking point. Yeah, too. They got nothing else going on.
They got nothing else going on.
Reruns of like Stargate and Blade Runner and fucking other shit. Who knows?
At least they weren't like G4 where they were just replaying old episodes of Cops and Cheaters.
Well,
those last couple of years.
I forget her name, but G4 gave us her and a few other people. No, it wasn't Olivia Munn I was thinking of, but I was going to say her.
Morgan Spurlock?
No, I forget her name. Sarah Jean Underwood.
Yes.
They gave us her, gave us Olivia Munn, so I can't complain too much. And they also,
what's her face too from X-Play?
Oh yeah, who was that?
She was cute.
Oh man, I forget who that is.
Morgan Webb.
Morgan Webb. Yep.
Yeah, she was really cute.
Yeah.
And Olivia Munn, of course, because I loved her in the Newsroom with Jeff Daniels.
Oh yeah, perfect fit.
She was great in that.
Yep.
Newsroom, by the way, is a highly underrated show. If nobody's ever seen it,
there's so many underrated shows out there.
There really is. But no, I think that with boy, we really went around the fences on this one. Jesus Christ,
we did. I was just thinking that too.
It was just like all these matches, and I'm just like, oh well, yeah.
Fuck AEW. They can go to Sci-Fi.
Yeah, fuck them. Fuck them. Who gives a shit? Let them end up on AMC right after the new Walking Dead.
No, after Talking Dead. So
yeah, exactly.
Nobody's fucking watching anymore.
It's funny. They were in Worcester this week. They were filming the.
I saw that. I did see that. Yeah.
They were somehow able to get kind of. I make the jokes constantly with downtown Worcester because it's
already looks so like empty. The fucking apocalypse.
It's so empty.
Trust me.
At certain points,
So I think we've talked about this enough. But you, myself, and Mark, who we've had on the show, have a separate chat that we engage with as part of a different show that we all used to be on together. We kept the chat going, kept two chats going about it actually, and that was one of the things that was being discussed this week in that chat was the fact that, the area of Worcester that they were filming this part of The Walking Dead was the absolute perfect fucking place for it. And I didn't say this verbally or through the text, but I basically agreed in the sense the fact that it already looks like the fucking apocalypse anyways. So perfect fit is 100% accurate there.
I saw friends of mine on Facebook had met Jeffrey Dean Morgan this week. Because he was around town.
Yep.
Because I guess the project is one that involves Negan.
Yep.
So of course he was just, which I'm happy at least that Negan is somehow still involved in this universe.
I'm also happy that Jeffrey Dean Morgan's still collecting a paycheck too. But yeah.
Yes, I firmly agree. We've had many discussions about this show.
Many of them not good, by the way.
Many of them not good. Because I remember at one point I just looked at you and I just said, so how are they going to end this thing? And you just were like, shut up. Like, because that was legitimately my thought process. Because I'm like, okay, like this is, I'm
but you also asked it like early-ish. You asked it earlier. So for context, when you asked that question, it's probably like season 4, season 5.
Yes.
By I want to say like 7 at that point. It's also when I stopped watching it.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact season. I will admit that right now. But it was the season where they basically killed Carl off, and Rick supposedly was killed off, but it ended up disappearing or whatever.
Right.
And I could just tell you that for somebody that had gone through the comics, not like religiously, but knew enough about them and had kind of read through them during the course of when the show was happening as well, especially during those off seasons. I'd read ahead. I did it with other book to television or film adaptations as well. And I don't like when they stray heavily away from the source material. And that is exactly what this fucking show ended up doing. To a point where I was like, and especially those two deaths do not happen in the fucking book. I was like, nope, fucking done. Or books, excuse me. I was like, nope, fucking done. Just fucking done. So, needless to say, I don't know how the fuck they ended it because I stopped watching.
I think the problem that I had with that show is their boomerang storytelling, number one.
Like Slingshot, where it's just like it goes this way, and then all of a sudden it fucking ends up doing a 360 and then back again. Yeah.
You're just like, what the fuck are you doing? And then on top of that, like, because they introduced Negan Law. Absolute brilliant introduction. Probably one of the best, I think, opening monologues for a character ever.
That's what happens in the books.
And somehow you fucked that up.
Well, listen, they did the same thing with the governor. I'll tell you that now. And the governor in the books was also introduced very well as a sane, rational human being who just turns into an absolute fucking psycho. But the way they went about it and the way that they killed him, I don't remember if that's how it happened in the novels at that point, but I was just like, are you shitting me right now? Like, what is going on? So, yeah, I don't know. But I guess this is the perfect time to segue into other portions of television and television history.
Yes.
So, Dan hit me up this week. I was already kind of struggling with what we should talk about anyways. And last night he hits me up. Ironically enough, it goes, hey, do you have enough time to watch Dark Side of the Ring from this week? I said, yeah, absolutely. He's like, good, I want to talk about it. And I was like, well, no fucking shit, because you're asking if I have time to watch it. But I need to specify this now. I don't watch it all the time. Dark Side of the Ring, that is, obviously. I'll catch an episode here or there. Obviously, the Hogan one, and I've caught other ones as well. But this one, because I remember when we did the tribute to Ollie Anderson about a couple months ago, when he passed, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. This was obviously filmed before he had passed.
Yes.
But it still has, archive footage of him. They interview his eldest son. A few other people they interviewed, just to kind of rattle them off, are people from Georgia Wrestling. Cornette. We talked about Meltzer already. Meltzer was interviewed as well. The one person I didn't realize until the very end when the credits start rolling that is in this but not interviewed is the narrator, which just fucking cracked me up talking about the end of the show and how they're talking about Vince McMahon and his scandals and everything. Fucking Chris Jericho.
Yep. No, Jericho's been the narrator now, I think, since like season 2.
But the fact that he did this one, I was just like, oh man, is there an NDA for this too? Like, fuck.
Yeah. It's been an interesting season because there are episodes with this now, and we've done reviews. We've reviewed the first 4 episodes on Pro Wrestling World Talks with John and Stephanie. We went through the first 4 episodes of season 1. We still have to finish season 1, which we will get to. We do 2 at a time on an episode and then review and talk about it and all that stuff. Because Steph likes the true crime stuff aspect of it, but also the chicanery. Like,
oh man, she would have liked this episode then, I think.
What we now when we did one of the first episodes was about the Montreal Screwjob.
Of course.
So Steph watched the episode about the Montreal Screwjob, and then she's like, I feel like you're not telling me everything. And I'm like, I said, I can't tell you everything. I said, you need to watch everything. And she's like, is there anything that can like a Cliff Notes version of everything that happened. I said, yeah. There's a 2-hour documentary by Cultaholic that goes into everything from A to fucking Z, deep dives the whole thing. And then there's also one that Cornette did too, because Cornette was actually there, booking committee, things of that nature. So, which she found fascinating. And this is another episode I think she will find fascinating. It is going to take a while for us to get to that, though, considering the fact we're still on season 1.
Yep.
But I wanted to talk about it tonight because I was just like, number one, we needed something, and number two, I was actually talking about it with Bourré, because he didn't know really much about it either, and I was just like, I was like, well, might as well kind of go through this and kind of give everybody an explanation on, and kind of give also some back, because they only can do like 45 minutes of content and give it to you. This is how it happened and all that stuff, where I can kind of not so much gloss over everything, but more or less.
But also devote more time to certain details.
Yeah, devote a little bit more time and also maybe give you a little bit more tidbits of how things were going. So Black Saturday happened on July 14th, 1984, where people were watching WTBS and were expecting to see World Championship Wrestling, that umbrella, that was performed by the Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Yep.
Instead, they got Freddie Miller, and not Gordon Soley, introducing Vince McMahon. Introducing Vince McMahon and WWF Wrestling on TBS, which was unfucking heard of. Like, it literally was like, holy shit. Like, because he had USA already at this point, and he wanted to dominate cable. That was his plan. He had bought the time, he wanted to have like a two-headed monster on two different networks. And this is a time when cable was not what it is now, where it's kind of, it was all owned by, now it's USA, I think, is owned by the NBC, Comcast, like Peacock, Universe. So
yeah, it is.
And same thing with ABC and ESPN. They're all kind of like owned. Like, they all are run by, like, you have very few independent stations out there anymore.
Yeah.
Minus like cable access. And WTBS and USA were like the two first like super stations.
Who was really WTBS.
Right.
I don't even know if USA was national at that point, was it?
They were. They were national. I think they became national in probably
right after
82 or 83.
Right.
Yeah. Because WTBS was like the first one, but they were like in the late 70s.
Right.
They kind of really became prominent.
Yeah. But everybody else was like affiliate. It wasn't, or not affiliate, excuse me, where it was just like a segregated entity that they were all segregated entries. It's like, even like radio stations now are owned by other companies.
Yes.
Like Chapter, like Christian, like Viacom, XCOM, like all these other companies that own them now. It was different back then for both radio and television, really.
Yes.
So WTBS, I feel like, and it's discussed in this too, and I'm going to cut you off, but it's discussed in this documentary too, where it's like, they were it for wrestling for a long time. They really were. And that's why he wanted it, because not only was it national, but it was the fact that he could own the biggest wrestling market at that point, regardless of being Georgia South, Stroller Championship, whatever it was, that they didn't care about it. They wanted the showtime. That's what they wanted. So it go ahead. It's such a funny like story to me in some cases, even though it's really fucked up to kind of say that.
Georgia Championship Wrestling was a huge deal in the early 80s. Late 70s as well. It was a hotbed. Everybody was with who's who pretty much went through there. In fact, Tommy Wildfire Rich, who was a big contributor to this episode, because of TBS and the star power that he had on TBS, he was the most popular wrestler on TV for a time. And that propelled him to beating Harley Race for the NWA Championship. It was a very short reign. I think it was only a few weeks. But Jim Barnett, who was heavily influential in this episode, was the promoter at the time for Georgia Championship and was able to convince Harley to do the job in the Omni. And for a couple weeks, Tommy Rich, I don't even know, it may have been like a week and a half for all I know.
It was short. That's all I remember.
It was very short. But Tommy Rich defeated Harley Race and was NWA champion. And he's able to go out on TBS with the championship. And that was the power of TV back then that they were starting to realize, because they literally had a kind of a matinee idol from this TV show become NWA champion, almost like book it for that to happen, to kind of make themselves known. Everybody knew who they were. By 84, they were a shell of their former self. Georgia Championship. They had Jake the Snake. I think he was one of the guys kind of running things down there, but I don't think he was.
I think he had power, but he wasn't an owner.
Yeah, he was a power, but he wasn't Ole Booker, because Ole was Booker.
Yeah.
But in 84, as far as an NWA territory is concerned, you can argue they were probably in the top 5, but 1 and 2 was Jim Crockett Promotions and World Class out of Dallas. Those were the two big powers. And they were generating, and also this is months after Starrcade had just happened. Starrcade happened in November of 83. So Crockett literally has the entire NWA eating out of the palm of his hand, because they're ready to make a move wherever he wants to go, because he's ready to go there. And he has an understanding of where the business should be going and things of that nature. But he also had the talent, because Dusty went over there and started booking for him. And Flair was the champion, best wrestler in the world. And their idea was, we'll just build the company around Flair. We'll build the company around Dusty as the top baby face. And we'll just go from there. And then, of course, you had in Dallas, the Von Erichs were the number 1 baby faces. They had the feud going on with the Freebirds that was literally went all of 83.
Yep.
But about a month before, everything kind of started to happen with Georgia, because this all happened in the spring, if I recall. And then it took months before the takeover could have happened because of litigation, things of that nature. In February of 84, David Von Erich dies. That changes things dramatically for the favor of Jim Crockett Promotions. Even though World Class does the big stadium show at Texas Stadium, Von Erich beats Flair. However, that title reign only lasts 18 days. So there's a lot of moving parts that is going around. There's a lot of things happening that in the next 4 or 5 years, a lot of dominoes are being set up for the ultimate collapse of everything. Georgia Championship, though, they really didn't have the star power. They had great TV, but they didn't have the star power that they did. They had Gordon Solie still, but they didn't have control of the NWA Championship as much as they probably wanted to. Because Crockett, at this point, had pretty much put a stranglehold on everything of everything kind of is going to flow through us, which it eventually did.
Yeah.
But people romanticize and say, oh, Ole, they took it right from under Ole's nose. He had no idea this was going on. And it's like, look.
Bullshit.
Ole Anderson, as great as he was, because he's a great performer. I'm not going to shit on it, especially the man's dead, all this stuff. He was a great... I don't want to shit on him and completely bury him. But I need to be also honest and truthful and say, okay, yes, him and the Minnesota Wrecking Crew were one of the best tag teams ever. I thought he was a good booker. I thought he was decent. However, he strong-armed to get the company in the first place from Jim Barnett.
Yep.
Which, in my opinion, may have had some motivation of he probably didn't like Barnett because of his sexuality. This is 1982, 83, 84. It wasn't accepted as, and the man even had to worry about not even getting into NWA social clubs because of his sexuality. Which, again, we're talking the early 80s, late 70s, which things back then were looked down upon more than they are now.
Right.
Now it's not even a big issue. It's like, who gives a shit? But back then people gave a shit.
I think even in a sports, even if it is entertainment, it's still kind of frowned upon, right? But to your point, the timing of this in the late 70s, early 80s does not help. I totally agree. The one thing I would say, though, as well, in addition to this, isn't so much related to his sexuality, which by the way, I'm glad that Dark Side of the Ring really made it more of a footnote than an actual argument. I thought they did that very well. They touch on it, and then it's gone. Which, kudos to them for that, number one. But number two, I feel like Ole was going to do it either way. Ole was I feel, determined to get that company from him. Whether he felt it was because of that or not, I don't think we'll ever know. But let's be real. Knowing Ole, knowing the timing, it probably played a role. I'll say it that way.
No, without question.
But having broken in, though, just real quick before you go on, having broken into that office and seeing those expenses, I think Barnett, and somebody else said this too, I don't know if it was Nick Patrick who said it or somebody else, but they said Barnett probably would have said that's the price of doing business. And he's partially right.
It is.
Because the guy who owns, the guy who does everything, the executive, we'll call him, is that guy. He's going to get paid more than everybody else. And I don't think that's what Ole really saw. I think he just saw it as a waste. Well,
Ole's going to look at it from one perspective, and the perspective of he's getting a limo and I'm not. And that whenever you're the booker or have a piece of the action in a company, you want to get the same treatment as the other guy. And if the other guy if you have a Casio watch and that guy has a Rolex, you're pissed off about it because you're like, how come he has a Rolex and I don't, and we work under the same roof? And I think that's the way that Ole looked at it. And the problem is that Ole wanted complete control, and he wasn't. Could he be a booker? Yes. Could he be an owner? No. Because he fucked everybody over too. The Briscoes were pissed because they were just like, where's their fucking money? And he's just coming up with angles, and it's just like, oh, let's be blood brothers and make this. What the fuck is this? We 13 years old? No, I want my fucking money.
Hopefully he cuts his head, by the way.
Oh,
and not like, his
childish
arm or something, man. something else.
Let's make a blood oath. I mean, if I was the Briscoes, I'd be like, what the fuck is this? Because they're like in the Cherokee Nation, I think. They're both they're both of Native American descent. So I'm surprised that they didn't like kind of sit there and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like Jack Briscoe, if we're talking about like Native American athletes, it's like Jim Thorpe and Jack and Jerry Briscoe are like in the same fucking realm. Like they're legitimate type like badass athletes. Especially Jack. Jack is one of the greatest NWA champions of all time. So he carries so much weight and respect. And Ole is just fucking with this guy because he doesn't want to pay him. He doesn't want to pay anybody. And nobody's coming in. The houses are down. TV's down. The roster sucks. And I mean, Ole fired Roddy Piper at one point. He fired him because he didn't like the fact that Roddy Piper used drugs recreationally. I mean, what the fuck is that? Like, what is that? Thank you. He fired Roddy Piper. And because Roddy Piper liked to be a party animal. But when he showed up to TV and when he's involved in some of your biggest angles, he's getting some of the biggest reactions you could possibly want. And, oh, yeah, he'd go to New York in 2 years and be one of the biggest fucking heels in the history of the industry. Nice fucking going, Ole. Nice fucking going. And anytime you saw an Ole Anderson interview, and there's two really big ones. There's the one he did with RF Video, and then there's the one he did with Dave Meltzer. Meltzer interviewed him on the Wrestling Observer. And he's just a prick to deal with. He's very combative. Everybody who is more successful than him and did more in the wrestling business is a complete asshole. And that's how it is. He always came off to me as someone that if the guy was more successful than him, in his mind, he sucked and he's the worst ever. Like Ric Flair. Ric Flair, he's just like, he gave me the same match every single night. So I pushed for him to get NBA World Champion just to get him out of my fucking territory because he was killing the business. Okay. Keep telling yourself that at night.
I'm just going to say that I think you could phrase it just way better than I was going to about Ole and his personality, because I would have gone a little bit deeper, and I'll just say it this way, which is still kind of PG for me, of to what I would actually say. He always seemed like somebody pissed in his Cheerios.
Oh yeah, without question. Without question. It was a fucking nightmare. Like it was just a nightmare sometimes, just sitting there in these interviews and just hearing this guy just bitch and moan, and it's like his mindset for pro wrestling stopped in 1975. And this guy is supposed to be booking for a hot territory.
Well, not even that, but a national show.
Yeah, a national show. And he's fucking everybody over. He's not bringing in the right talent. He doesn't want to pay the right talent to get, like he was he was the booker in 90 when Cornette and Stan Lane pretty much just walked out on him because Cornette was mad because he's just like, you got us wrestling in 4 matches tonight and we're losing every one of them. And Ole told him, he's just like, you don't like it, you can leave. Cornette and Stan Lane just got in the car and left.
Yeah.
Cornette never came back to WCW. And I didn't want to speak ill will of the dead. And I didn't mean to speak ill will of the dead. And I wasn't going to a few weeks ago with Ole. But the problem is that this episode came to the forefront, and I really don't want to sit and make people think that this guy is a sympathetic figure. He got screwed. He didn't get fucking screwed. He was screwing everybody else. And it's like, I'm going to use the old adage Vince used about Bret Hart. Bret screwed Bret. Ole screwed Ole. He was a fucking idiot. You don't overthrow a guy. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, all I'm going to say is this, and you're more or less going to say it differently, I feel like, because I could already judge that based on the few words that you already started to say. But I don't feel bad.
No.
I feel bad that he has passed, don't get me wrong. And I do agree with you what you said earlier, that Ole was a good wrestler. But he strong-armed, I feel, is the better way of saying this, that to what you were about to say, but I'll allow you to say that in a second. He strong-armed control this company away from somebody.
Yes.
And it is, of my opinion, again, I need to clarify that, of my opinion, that he ran this into the ground.
He did. I firmly believe 100% that he ran Georgia Championship Wrestling into the ground. He wasn't paying the owners their dividends, which he can make. Well, you need a cash reserve and all that stuff, which you do. You do need a cash reserve. When you own a small business or something of that nature, you need cash on hand for emergency situations, but also to cover your own ass in case there's something. I get all that. That is a fair argument. That is not like that. Him saying that to someone and saying, look, there's a cash reserve, but you still got to pay your dividends out. You still got to make those guys that paid in, because that's their nest egg. That's their nest egg. And the Briscoes were at a point in their careers, because they didn't wrestle too much after this. They were seeing the end. They were at the end. And they wanted to be able to reap the rewards. And Ole was fucking with it.
Yep.
Ole did mafia tactics to Jim Barnett. Jim Barnett, and he was pictured talking to Jimmy Carter, who was big in the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
And he was also friends with Ted Turner, who is the fucking president of the goddamn network that you have your show on. And you just strong-armed him out. And Jim Barnett going to Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon going to Las Vegas to the NWA meeting and saying, we're withdrawing from the National Wrestling Alliance. Cornette knew what that meant when he sat there, and he's just like, either he's starting his own promotion or he's getting out of the wrestling business. Sure fucking enough, he started his own wrestling promotion.
Yeah.
And Vince didn't go after, like, Vince went to Atlanta when the situation presented itself with the Briscoes and Jim.
Yeah. He already had
and all
TV.
He already had TV.
Yeah.
The situation presented itself. And if anything, the National Wrestling Alliance, Vince really didn't go after any of them because he went to Crockett at the end of '83, and he's like, I'd like to get Piper. And Piper just went. The only guy that in '84 he really went directly after in the throat of was Vern Gagne. Perfect example of it. As we were watching this, the first match that he ended up throwing to was Jesse Ventura in a matchup in Minneapolis, because they were in St. Paul.
Yep.
And that was around because what Vince used to do is he would run the Minneapolis area with Hogan, Dr. D, David Schultz, and Jesse Ventura, all those guys on top. In fact, in '84, he booked a tag team match at a house show in Minneapolis with Hulk Hogan and Gene Okerlund as a tag team. Why? Because they were both featured on the AWA. and he wanted to get the house up because he wanted them to think that it was actually an AEW, because they're like
show.
Hogan, and because they all thought it was an AWA show, but it was somebody completely different.
Yep.
That was the only way. Like between like 84, in 84, it was Vince fucking Vern Gagne. 85 is really when he began the push, and that was after he sold the time to Crockett for $1 million, which he ended up telling Crockett, he's just like, I'm gonna make you eat this fucking money. And he went on to promote WrestleMania,
Yep.
and he made everybody eat that fucking money.
Oh yeah.
Not just Crockett. And
it's funny because in this documentary, and I'm pretty sure it's actually Cornette who says it as well, ironically enough, is that this with Georgia Wrestling was a failure. Getting that slot could be a failure because ratings were down. He couldn't hold the ratings. The Georgia crowd wanted Georgia Championship Wrestling to come back instead of this WWF. They hated it.
yes.
So he sold it, like you said, to Crockett Promotions. Said what he said to Crockett Promotions, saying he can make you eat this money. Promotes WrestleMania, and then that's where the liftoff actually takes place. As a booking and selling and all of the headlining behind WrestleMania, getting all the stars to come out for it, no less to booking Hogan and Mr. T against a guy that only got rid of in Roddy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton, and that was your main event of WrestleMania.
It was Orndorff. It was
Orndorff. I'm sorry, Cowboy Bob Orton was in their corner. Yeah,
he was the second. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and he ended up getting rid of one of the main eventers for the show. He also didn't want to book Hulk Hogan. He didn't see any money in him. And of course, again, it's all these guys that are more successful than him that, I didn't see money in him, or I got rid of him because I didn't think he was that good. It's always that trajectory. It's always that. It was always somebody. I don't even know if he really said anything great about Dusty Rhodes. Now, mind you, Ole has been in some fantastic angles. When he turned against Dusty in, I think, 82, the promo work that he did for that, the angle that they did, and the way they did it is some of the best shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's fucking fantastic. And his psychology, the way he cuts promos, he's great. But the problem is, I don't think his head ever left it. 84 and 85, 86, 87, he was lost. Even when he was a horseman, I was like, this doesn't fit. Like, it's just, it did in a way because it elevated Arn. It elevated Arn because he gave him the Anderson last name, and it gave Arn the ability now of, oh shit, like, he's a legitimate member of the Anderson family, all that stuff. And then it's funny because I'm about to compliment Lex Luger again, which really doesn't happen, but it's happening.
What the fuck? Who are you?
Yeah.
Twice in a night?
When Lex Luger came in, when they brought him in to replace Ole, I was like, that's a fucking good upgrade. Like, in retrospect, just because the Luger at that point was still like a rookie, and the other three were like technicians. They were great workers. But then you had somebody that was like 275, just jacked to the fucking moon, and can do all the power stuff that you guys are. You can do it, but it's not to the extent of what Luger's going to do. But no, it was a fun episode to watch because of all like the espionage of it. It's always good to see. Just because it almost felt like it was Watergate at certain points. You're like, oh Jesus, when the fuck is and it's just they're at the Watergate Hotel with flashlights, breaking into people's offices and all that stuff. G. Gordon Liddy walks by, waves. It was such an interesting story to tell, just because it's like it's very mafioso type stuff, the way that this kind of stuff went down. And just like, no, I wouldn't say drama, but more or less kind of, it tells an interesting story in the sense of that this company just gets, it almost gets blindsided. One moment you're expecting, oh, it's just going to be the same as it ever was. Like Gordon Soley, why is Freddie Mitchell out there? Who the fuck? Vince McMahon? What? Like, you almost wish social media was around back then. Just of seeing all the dislikes or the amount of red faces. Because you're not, that would have blown my mind if I watched both. Like, if I watched both products and understood it.
Don't you feel that we got that a little bit with, like, WCW and ECW, and seeing Shane come out and seeing Stephanie come out, stuff like that?
I mean, we did and we didn't. I mean, the thing was
It's
that
different. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because the WCW stuff, even in like 2001, I knew, I'm looking at WCW, I'm like, what are they really buying here? They're just buying the library. That's it. They're buying the tapes. You know, and they're getting some contracts out of it. Great, which, you know, a lot of them, some of those guys that did turn out to be stars, like Booker T, obviously, of course.
Eddie Ray,
but they didn't get.
Cool,
well, Eddie came before that, right, in that Radicals deal, when they pretty much left overnight and they showed up.
Yep.
That was so weird. And I was, because that was, they literally got released like the week before, and then the week after they're on Raw. I'm like, don't they have a compete clause? Like 16, 17. I'm like, hey, what about the no compete? Like, how are they just able to show up on TV now?
Right.
You know, because we were so subjected to that. But, you know, the interesting part about this is the fact that it was the first kind of time where Vince was trying to take the world over. Like, it was that first initial shot, but it didn't land at first because he had to sell the time. I think that's also, he realized at that point of, all right, there's certain parts of the country that just aren't going to like me. Like, because when WCW went under, there was just a certain portion of wrestling fans that never came back. Their affiliation died March 26, 2001. Like, that was it. They were done. They just, and some of them might have come back in the last couple of years. Some of them might have already left. Who knows? Because you think about the 700 and something thousand people of AEW fans that watch WWE, and vice versa, you know?
Well, we've talked about that, though. Like, a lot of them left because they wanted the alternative. Because at that time, he was booking garbage. Let's be real. We've talked about this before.
He was, yes. No, he was. 100%. I understood why AEW needed to exist. Maybe my feelings on it now have kind of differed, because I'm like, if it's just going to be this bad, why do you keep doing it?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, either you got to figure this out or get somebody else in there that's going to know what they're doing.
Yep.
And you see promotions like this all the time. You see it happen, where they come in with all the promise in the world, where you look at Georgia Championship as a perfect example, because they did have hot talent. They did have great TV. They had a great TV. They had great TV. They had a great TV talent behind them. But in the end, you make enough mistakes and you lose shit. And that's what happened to them. And it's a cautionary tale.
It is. It really is.
Hopefully some people watched it that Tony that kind of
what?
It's like because I've seen this. I saw the UWF at certain points, XPW, like all these companies that just they make so even ECW at certain points. Because I was talking about it today with somebody about ECW because I'm like
they would not have gotten away with half the shit if it was 2010 or over.
No way. It wouldn't have worked. It just wouldn't
at all.
Somebody would have gotten mad. Somebody would have gotten offended by something. And
well, imagine social media then too. For Christ's sake, like Bully Ray's some of his promos, man. True.
I still remember that fucking pay-per-view one they did at Heatwave '99. Of course, my mom it's the one time she's gonna walk into the TV room. And he's just going on and just being like, and we got a blank and a Hawaiian shirt.
Yep.
We got a mom that trained her how to, it's like, oh my God. Oh my God. And my mom's asking questions. I'm like, no.
Questions that are probably a little too uncomfortable to answer.
Because I liked it for the wrestling. That was it. I didn't give a shit about the promos then.
I don't disagree with you. Trust me.
Like it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable to watch then. It's uncomfortable, really uncomfortable to watch now.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, and this is 25 years ago. It's like I understood. Do I ever feel like maybe he was crossing the line? And I felt like at times that he was. This is one of those times. But I'm trying to explain and verbiage this to your mother. Because she's just watching it and she's seeing this guy just use language that,
especially at the time,
19, I'm 60 years old.
Yeah, I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Especially considering the fact that we're like 19, 20 or a little bit younger even. That's an uncomfortable situation, to say the least.
Yeah, and it's just like, is this all wrestling? It's like, no, just his company. You're trying to explain that, it's a hard one. Because ECW, there was just moments where you're just like, holy shit, like this is fantastic, but totally illegal.
Oh, God. Like, it's funny. We talk, or I shouldn't say we talk, but sometimes you go on like social media and you see people review like old stuff, whether it be old like NES, just you throwing that out there, old computers, old content, media. Devices, whatever. But in the essence of reviewing old wrestling stuff, man, it gets super uncomfortable at certain points. And that is one of them. It just just is. And we've talked about this before too, like women's wrestling back then, especially the Attitude Era, was just I don't know how you could review it now with a straight face. I'll be nice and say it that way because I can say other things about it that are just way more inappropriate and gratuitous because that's exactly what it actually was.
I mean, the Jerry Lawler stuff too. I mean, that's somewhat because so I don't know if the mic's picking it up, but sometimes when I say certain things or have a certain inflection, my puppies, ironically enough, are now barking. So when I did the thing earlier, they started barking too. But puppies apparently makes my dogs bark, even though they're like upstairs and I'm not that loud right now. They still are barking. Stop barking! God damn it!
And on that note, just on that note, real quick.
Hooray!
Okay.
Hoorah. No, but
now I'm getting texted from above. Why are the dogs barking?
My bee, sorry. No, it's so.
My bad.
I've just seen enough of these episodes where you're just like, okay, like there's got to be something more, and it's like,
I was, I was kind of expecting it. So that's, I guess, a good segue into like the last little bit of what it was, right? So we talked a little bit about one part of it, one aspect of it, with the sense of it was a flop for Vince to buy them out of that time slot. Really,
yes,
say it that way. But what he got out of it in terms of what WrestleMania ended up becoming, it didn't really matter.
No.
But in
not
terms,
the grand scheme of things.
Right. But in terms of like a vestige of old school territory wrestling, which is what you and I got the tail end of when we were babies and growing up a little bit, in the sense of NWA, especially the later years of that, the start of WCW, the initial WrestleMania, obviously, when we were very, very young, like babies. Sorry to age us. But it ended up working in some way because he did get rid of a vestige of that territory. But the other thing that was kind of discussed and not exactly ruled out, even by the Briscoes, is the fact that there was a little uncertainty of whether or not Ollie called a hit and a hit man on the Briscoes, because he may or may not have felt in a certain way that they were responsible for this.
Jim Ross overheard at an NWA meeting or conference guys in the bathroom discussing a hit on Vince. And it was around the same time.
Sure.
So that was always on the table back then. And it's interesting because Eddie Graham passed away, I think, just a few months before all this stuff popped off. Because I wondered if Eddie lived, if kind of that if they would have even been really mad at the Briscoes, or even what if, because Jack and Eddie were very, very close. So I don't know if Jack would have talked to Eddie at some point and seen if Eddie could have swooped in and maybe helped Ole out or something of that nature that would have maybe delayed what happened. There's a lot of factors that happen around that time that kind of, because that's the thing sometimes with the wrestling business, where one little thing can cause a butterfly effect that we're still feeling the effect of. And this could be something that happened like 40 years ago. It's just how the business works, I guess you could say. Yeah, I was. I really liked this episode. I wish it would kind of do more of this type of stuff, because there were some episodes this season I was just like, do we really need to do, like they did one on Earthquake?
Yeah, I know.
Which I was like, because he died of cancer, which that was tragic. I'll say that was extremely kind of a real sad ending for him. But I don't know if it was like kind of where Dark Side of the Ring goes, because that was more natural causes.
Right.
That wasn't. He didn't have a drug overdose. He didn't have a like. Everybody talks so highly of him. So I'm like, why is he getting it like that? He should be getting a biography. He shouldn't be getting a fucking like a Dark Side of the Ring episode. Because it's like, why do we like? We should be celebrating him. He had a good career.
Yeah. I was a little surprised when I heard about that too. Like Earthquake, and then they kind of made it like a sad one, like you said. It was like, why? Like, why do we need to talk about this? This one, I felt was, first of all, a lot better but
Yes.
it was definitely one that, for those that already kind of knew this, it was like you got a little bit more details. Other than that, it was like stuff we kind of already knew, I felt like.
Right.
I was interested about the hit part, and it's kind of why I brought it up, because I was like, oh, well, you always kind of heard about that stuff, but,
I believe it.
I do in a sense, but I also don't. And honestly, it was the Georgia Championship Wrestling secretary that kind of got me. Like, nah, he would have done it himself. And I kind of believe that a little bit more. And I also believe what Ollie's son also said about fuck you and your wife when he met Vince that time. I definitely believe that.
Fuck you and your wife.
I definitely believe that.
No, he's stated that. Like,
yeah,
he even
that's
said
why
that
I
in an
believe
interview.
it, because it's been confirmed by different sources.
Yeah. Like, I firmly believe that. I was like, okay, yeah, that happened. I think there was another version going around that he may have called her the C word.
I heard B word, but C word might have been said too. Who knows?
That was thrown around for a while. I don't know if that actually happened. I do believe, though, he did probably call one. I don't know if he called anybody the C word. He might have just called them an asshole.
I think he definitely said "f you" and "f your wife" too. Or
yeah, I firmly
using Linda's actual name too. By the way, but yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on the documentary, as it were? Dark Side of the Ring?
I thought it was a fun episode. If nobody's really checked it out, it is definitely one that kind of to check out, because it shows you more kind of the way the business used to be, as far as how cutthroat it was.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said when we started talking about it, I did like that. It had Cornette, it had Meltzer, it had Nick Patrick, it had some of the wrestlers from Georgia Championship Wrestling. As I just mentioned too, it had the secretary of Georgia Championship Wrestling too. So you get a lot of different perspectives, and I think that's important too. I was a little surprised in Nevrick, just considering the fact that he was on television there a couple times. Obviously, Dusty had passed, but he was on TV there for a long time as well. Same with Piper. He's passed, but still, he was there.
Blair was too busy fighting with a kitchen manager at a fucking Gainesville fucking pizza shop.
So speaking of that, I wonder if anybody talked.
Speaking
of, I wonder if anybody talked about that this week. I guess it's time to find out.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the Pro Wrestling World Talk Scroll.
Yes.
It's that time.
Got a lot of good feedback on this segment, by the way.
Good.
There a lot of good feedback. They love the idea of it.
Good.
And so I think that this is definitely a keeper, I think. So
yeah, as I said last week, I think we should try to do this, time permitting, every show.
Yes.
I think this is just a great segment. I almost scrolled a little bit too far already. I think this is a great segment.
Skittle.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm actually going to use the mouse this time, because after last week and pausing, scrolling, and everything else.
Don't touch another wire again either.
Nope, I'm good. We're good with the wires. We're good with the wires, which is funny that you say that, because this is also on a different monitor. So I can't touch anything. So again, if nobody picked it up last week, we are going to scroll through the Facebook page for the Pro Wrestling World. They've been kind of tagging us in comments of their posts, so we should definitely be paying it forward for them. Also, since we're recording on a Friday, there's going to be some SmackDown spoilers in here. I did refresh a little bit into SmackDown before we started recording. So there is a SmackDown spoiler. It is actually the first post, Dan. So I'm going to read this post to you if you can't read it. Just saying. Friday Night SmackDown. This is by Frenchie, by the way. Excuse me. So this is about 2 hours ago during the kickoff of SmackDown. Friday Night SmackDown begins with the undisputed WWE Champion Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis telling Cody who his opponent will be at King and Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia. Turns out it's going to be none other than the United States Champion Logan Paul. Cody accepts Logan's challenge and also mentions that if he were to win Logan's U.S. Championship, that would make him a Grand Slam champion. I think Cody's story is about to get bigger.
So are they going
to... So, you and I actually didn't talk about this. So,
yes.
I want to talk about this very quickly. I'm going to make this very, very short. So, I was actually thinking today that they had to bring somebody back because it's Saudi Arabia. They always do this. They always make these a big match for the main event or other matches, let's be real. So, there's two things to unpack there very quickly. And again, we're talking about this having not watched SmackDown yet. So I want to make that very clear as we go through this part of this post by Frenchie. Great post, by the way. I think that if he's going to say that, him being Cody, that U.S. title has to be title for title.
Yes.
And number two, again, I did feel that they had to bring somebody in for this because it's Saudi Arabia. They always bring people in for Saudi Arabia.
Right. No, I expected, number one.
You don't want to say Brock, but you were thinking Brock, weren't you?
I didn't want to. No, I didn't think they were going to do Brock and Cody again.
Okay. What do you think then?
I thought it was going to be somebody that I was like, or I initially thought it was going to be like LA Knight or like Solo Sikoa.
Nah, I didn't think that. I can see why you would think that, but I don't think that.
Yeah, no. I'm glad though. I'm fine with Logan Paul.
I don't hate it. I think they'll put on a great match. I don't hate it.
They'll have a great match, and then Logan will do his part to make the match more important.
100%.
And he brings eyes to the product, so it's like I don't hate this match.
Yep.
I don't hate it whatsoever.
Yep. All right, so we'll just keep going. We'll do this rapid fire if we can. So great post by Frenchie there telling us what's up for SmackDown so far. That's a different page, so here we go. Oh, man, I saw this post the other day, too, 4 days ago. So this is by David, actually.
Ah, yes.
Happy birthday to the guy who is next to meaningless in the wrestling industry, but somehow managed to change history in wrestling multiple times.
I'm glad we're doing this because I saw this the other day. I'm like, I hope we're talking about this up there.
I'm going to not lie to you. I hope the exact same thing. I saw this post, I think the day of when he posted it 4 days ago, and I was like, oh man, we have to hit that post. Managed to create massive legal action with WWE, managed to trigger point for CM Punk's rant at All Out, which led to Punk's fight with Perry at All In. It's kind of a stretch, but I see where he's going with that. Maybe the backstage fight with the Elite, if anything. Was booked to win NWA title, and then new ownership didn't like him, so they changed the finish, leading to Adam Pearce, for those that didn't know, was in NWA, I'll say that, and multiple companies, leaving Bruce Thorpe's version of NWA. That was obviously before Billy Corgan, who owns it now. Led the way in making wrestling podcasts popular before the Steve Austin and all the Conrad Thompson shows. One of the most important wrestling promos of all time. He's name drop in it. It is frankly bizarre how this guy has managed to be a huge part of wrestling history, despite having a career that would be otherwise, he wrote authorize. You gotta edit your post, David. Would be otherwise forgotten. Like his podcast episode with CM Punk is one of the most important podcast episodes in the history of the wrestling industry. And that, again, is a post by David. And there's the guy.
Boom, boom. Boom, boom, Colt Cabana.
Yeah, I was going to say, for just, because he didn't even say it in the article, so I just want to make sure that everybody knows David is talking about Colt Cabana.
God, he's fucking shits.
Yeah.
He's Bert Kreischer of wrestling.
Ah, Jesus. Here we go with Bert Kreischer again.
I'm just saying.
And I mean, for what you said about Bert Kreischer, that actually makes sense.
It does. My problem with him is that.
Let's hold on. Bert's a fat piece of shit. Cabana's not a fat piece of shit. He's just a regular piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing with Colt, though, right? Okay, Colt could have been the beefcake in this situation to the beefcake
to CM Punk's Hogan.
CM Punk to see CM Punk Hogan.
Yep.
He could have just been fine with that and just, and kept it to that way. But the problem is that he honestly thinks he's somebody. And that, I think, was the big problem with his career because of his ego and his bullshit, he lost a really good friend in Punk. And I got to take Punk's side in this situation because I don't know. Like, I feel like with Cabana, it's just he's complaining because, he promised me that he would pay for my attorneys. It's like, you got your own money, dude. Like, you're an independent worker. You're taking shots at different places.
I don't know. So just real quick on that CM Punk point with the legal fees, just real quick before you go on.
Yeah.
I think in suing a company like WWE, he doesn't have the money for that. I'm just gonna say it that way. Where Punk did. Punk was a main event talent. Colt Cabana was not. He was not.
He wasn't. But he was still like a really well-known indie guy. So you'd think that on the weekends his money would be... So he might not be bringing in 7 figures, but maybe in the low to mid sixes. Probably in the low end of the sixes.
I would say that. Yeah.
So maybe 150, 200 grand a year. And, I just felt like that the Punk thing, it to me is like, okay, I believe him that it does sound like something like he would say of just like, like I promised I would help him, but at the same time, I don't know. It's because I don't know the dynamic or the conversation that was had then.
Hey, Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
This is where you need to come into play here.
Yeah, exactly. The CM Punk Colt Cabana situation.
Oh my God, it would be a great episode too.
I mean,
CM Punk would just be shitting all over him for 20 minutes.
He did cost Punk a lot of money though, because he did
He
did air that fucking episode, and he aired it on Thanksgiving, and it was just some random drop. I still remember listening to it and just being fascinated by it. But at the same time, as someone that works in this industry, and that was an episode that I would have said to my buddy, I'm going to let this sit for a while. Because I don't know, because it had massive repercussions. And it's like, you get all this out of him, right? But is it any of this, if this is going to get me into some shit? And eventually it got him into them and got those guys into some shit. So I feel like the Punk probably feels like he betrayed him by posting it without really kind of waiting and seeing how he felt. Because you can go in and cut this 4-hour thing and just be like, fuck this company, fuck this, it was bullshit, they almost killed me with all that. You might want to let that simmer, right? You might want to sit on that for a few days and not fucking ruin the guy's financial situation. And then you yourself get dragged into it. So, dumb on his part.
Yeah. I mean, I got nothing else to really add here other than what we've already said. Great post by David here, so let's keep going.
Very good.
Yep. Happy birthday, Colt Cabana, you douchebag! And I loved it for the shoot, by the way, so that's why you see the little love in there. Yep. So this one is, let's see who this one is. I have a feeling already here.
Wordy.
Oh, it's Ripper. All right, so we actually haven't read a post by Ripper, so this is good though. He's talking about the Cody and AJ Styles match and how Dave Meltzer gave it 5 stars. Guess he isn't irrelevant now. Oh, so Ripper might be on our side for a change. Okay. Kidding. Oh, I guess he's not. See, he already killed it for us. I see 2 schools of thoughts. It's 2 schools of thought, just to let you know. One of the complaining that it isn't a 5-star match, and had it been in the Tokyo Dome, it may have been more than 5 stars. To your info, both Cody and Styles have wrestled at the Tokyo Dome, however, not against each other, and did not receive 5 stars. I don't know where you're going with this yet. The other school of thought is shock. Okay. Some saying that TK isn't paying Dave anymore. Oh, okay. To the ones that think TK pays Dave, why didn't WWE get many 5 stars before AEW? Was Ghetto paying him back then? It is absolutely hilarious to me that people believe Meltzer was paid by Japan for 20 plus years and now by TK. By the way, his ratings of Japan has decreased over the years. Guess he isn't being paid by them. But what about Black and Gold era of NXT, which had more 5/5 star matches than all the eras of WWE combined? Was Triple H paying him? It is true. It is abundantly clear that Dave has a very specific taste in wrestling. We touched on this earlier, actually. Mm-hmm. There is a reason Roman and Cody, which was a culmination of a year-long story, 4 if you count since Roman's heel turn, 8 if you have read my review of Cody-Roman rivalry since Cody left WWE, did not get 5 stars, while Cody and AJ, pretty much a random match, which we also discussed, the main basis of which is an interaction between Styles and Dusty in a different promotion. Cody/AJ is something that is much more likely to be seen in AEW, where the main story is who is the better wrestler and where they reference other promotions. Outside the style feels super, NJPW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, inspired. To me, it was a near perfect match except for one spot. Probably the one we mentioned, I would imagine, with the Cody Cutter. And this is a very, very, very personal bias that I have. No shit. I did not like Cody power outing with the Burning Hammer. I actually agree with Ripper there. I didn't like that either. I usually have no problem,
I didn't like it.
Powering up Spot, but the Burning Hammer is one of my favorite finishers of all times. He wrote scared, but he means sacred to him. Right. The original hammer has never been kicked out of. Other than that, this match is exactly what I love about pro wrestling. I am assuming Dave does too. I guess Dave has a post here or something, or Dave Meltzer. Probably Dave Meltzer, I would imagine. Now, as the reviewer, should he have a wider taste? Absolutely. And I think it is obtuse as WWE fans not see... You're using big words here, buddy. Just simmer down. Not seeing outside of WWE style and their definition of what makes...
Andy Dufresne?
Yeah, seriously. What makes a match or a feud good? WWE is becoming more adaptive of the non-WWE styles, so I'm assuming Dave will be rating these matches higher in the future. Listen, Ripper, I'm just going to say one thing. Long post, you make a lot of points, some of them good, some of them not so good, despite your misspellings. I will just kind of say this for this match, and we touched on this earlier, which is why we're not going to spend a lot of time on this one. I also, and I texted you this too when we were watching it, I hated that he kicked out of the Burning Hammer at 1.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it.
Fucking hated that. So, Ripper, that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up because we didn't discuss that earlier. However, that's the only spot of this match I didn't like.
No. The match was perfect other than that. I just was like, of all fucking moves. If you wanted to do that with a Styles Clash.
No, even the Styles Clash, I would have said no. If he hit like the phenomenal forearm and then tried to go for a pin and Cody kicked it 1 and powered up, I would not have cared at all.
Okay.
At all.
That's fair.
But the Styles Clash, the Burning Hammer, stuff like that, I draw a line. That's like 2.5 territory.
Right.
You know, so Ripper, very wordy post, very good post. I'm glad you brought up the Burning Hammer spot. I hated that as well. So, and obviously, as you heard, Dan did as well. So, good post there. This is another one talking about the 5-star rating. Also talking about the rest of the card, which we kind of already touched on. So, I'm not going to touch this whole post, Uncle Evan. However, I will touch your main points at the end here. On that note, is everything okay, Dave? We talked about that too. This seems like an honest assessment of the show. Have you been laying off AEW-sponsored haterade lately? Irregardless, he's right. Cody versus AJ was amazing, as most Backlash was. It's good to see Dave give WWE the credit they deserve once in a while. Just once in a while, my bud. I'm sorry, I got a nitpick. I apologize.
What do you guys think of Meltzer's Backlash ratings? So Dan, again, this is why I don't want to spend too much time on it. You and I had already discussed this earlier, so I'm just going to kind of reiterate what we already discussed. But we agree. We felt this was graded pretty accurately, if anything.
It was.
Yeah.
No, it was. I felt like it was very accurate. That's the best you're going to get from Meltzer.
100%. Yeah, for a
WWE
WWE show, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're not going to get, he gave it 7 stars. He's not going to do that. If he gives you 5, that's technically a 7. Like for WWE.
I mean, it's technically a 10 for WWE.
I know.
At that point.
It's so hard for them to get past a certain point. He didn't give Cody and Roman 5 stars. And I was just like, why the fuck can you not give that 5 stars when it had an ending like that?
Yeah.
But it is.
So I want to touch on that because we didn't talk about that in the other post mentioning Cody and Roman, I believe, by Ripper. But literally, it is the culmination of multiple stories, not just Cody's, but Seth and Roman.
Yeah.
It's the culmination of that from like 10 years ago. Like that to me, like that's automatic 10. I don't know how you get on anything. A 10 out of 10, I should say, obviously, when I say that, but right. I don't know how you don't get that 5 stars. But moving on. All right, so Uncle Evan, good post. Again, we didn't focus on it too much, but again, good post. I know we don't talk about this obviously too much, but 679 reactions, by the way, for that one. So good post. Oh boy, I'm scared, Mr. Ass. You're scaring me right now, bro. Oh no,
Mr.
All right,
Ass.
All right, Mr. Ass. Let's see what you got. Imagine going from main eventing the biggest wrestling show in the world against another talented young star for a prestigious title to only a few short years, later finding yourself working for the B Company. Fighting for a championship named after a channel. They just play old reruns of Friends and The Big Bang Theory. I need to stop right there. You always fucking say that shit. So that cracks me up. The Big Bang Theory is always on fucking that channel.
The lead-in is their highest.
And it's always the lead-in. Yep. It always is. So she did the
Sheldon should be getting the TBS championship.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You're so right. You are so right. Oh, my God. All right. So he's talking about Mercedes Moné here, so let's just pick right up. She did this to herself. She took Naomi down with her. Naomi had the sense to make things right. Mercedes is apparently too stubborn. We'll touch on that in a second. This is what happens when you believe you're a bigger star than you really are. Not a needle mover, not a ticket seller. I always enjoyed Sasha Banks' matches, but never felt like anything was missing with her gone. Seriously, though, good luck in her bid to win the Cartoon Network Championship. Oh my God, Mr. S. I need to find out who you are, my guy, so I can shake your hand for that one. Or whatever channel they're named after for their next title. My guy,
Mr. Ash just made my Christmas card list.
Yep, me too. I think it'd be my gift list, actually.
Yeah, he might actually get a gift.
Mr. Ass, first of all,
yes.
First of all, great post. All right.
Bellissimo! Fantastic.
Yep. I got my Italian fingers going right now. Dude, great post, first of all. I need to touch on that.
I think he's been listening to this program.
I think he has too. Great post. I can't stress it enough. That's why I've said it like 10 times already. I'll say it one more. Great post. I like the fact that you touched on the Naomi part because that is important. Naomi went to Impact, now TNA again, and was a star there. Let's be real. But she came back. Sasha Banks Mercedes Moné. The only thing I would have added to this post is she's overrated. Just throwing that out there.
I like
you and not so many words say that. So I'm not going to begrudge you there. But ever since she was in that goddamn Mandalorian show, it's like you are not a big star just because you were in that show. You're not. You're not. And your part in that show was not that great to begin with. Just fucking saying. Dan, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's the same old argument that we've made. It's the same discussions that we've been having recently about Mercedes. I personally am under the impression, at least from what I've seen, from the feedback that I've seen on social media about her tenure in AEW so far, about how the hardcore fan base for AEW
They're pissed.
is already starting to turn on her.
Yeah. I'm going to say that I don't think that's her fault based on what I've seen. I think it's the way she's been booked. And if that is her fault, then book her. I'm just going to say it that way because it's not even about booking. It's book her, period.
They hired someone to just handle her segments, to handle her stories. They also, she can't cut a promo. She can't do commentary. Her main strength is wrestling. But the problem is that she's been on TV doing everything but wrestling for the last 2 months.
So real quick, I want to touch on this. We've discussed this in the past, which is why I think it's worth saying it again. When she was in New Japan Pro Wrestling, she got exposed hard.
She did.
Especially her mic skills. Okay.
Yes.
Especially the mic skills. When she went for that new move, man, it looked like shit. The first time. Yeah. The first time. I will say she got better with it. Whether that's a dig in Kyrie for being in the wrong place or placed wrong, whatever you want to call it, I don't think we'll ever know, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think that's the case. Having said that, to then go from Kyrie to Mayu and have that feud was just utter exposure, in my opinion.
Mayu sucks. Mayu sucks.
Mayu sucks. To the fucking tune of Spider-Man from back in the day. And then getting hurt was not her fault. I will 100% say that. I don't think that was her fault. No. We've seen it. Like, people come up short when they fall, or they just fall wrong, and you might get 2 feet planted, and it just happens. And the funniest one to me, ironically enough, and I've said it on this show before, talking about 2 years ago, I believe at this point, was just fucking Shane McMahon doing a fucking leapfrog, and he tore both quads.
Yep.
Like, shit happens.
It just
does.
Freak accidents happen.
At this point, I feel like Mercedes' best fucking shit right now is just her fucking hair. Right. Which she just ripped off from fucking Tegan Knox, in my opinion. It's just like, okay, what are you doing, though?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I still say at Double or Nothing, she's going to get booed out of the building.
Yeah, probably.
I'm the more every week goes on, the more I think that's going to happen, because I think the fans are just like, what the fuck are they paying you for?
So here's the last thing I'm going to say about Sasha Banks, FKA, or whatever the fuck, Mercedes Moné. I've hit that wall for my tolerance of her, number one, which is, if you couldn't tell by my language at this point.
I think we knew 3 weeks ago.
I think we knew way before that, too, just saying. I've hit the limit. I don't care anymore. It was the same in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I stopped caring. I stopped caring with the fact that she was off WWE television between that, when she walked out, dropping the titles on Laurinaitis' desk, which shows you how long ago it had been at that point, considering Laurinaitis is no longer there. Johnny Ace, for those that know him that way. And then to go to New Japan was a long stint. Then she got injured. That's another long stint. Now she's back on television, but she still ain't fucking wrestling.
Right.
I just don't care anymore. At least Naomi was on TV pretty quick with TNA/Impact.
Right.
That was not the case for Sasha Banks. And for those that follow that news about her, she apparently wanted, like,
more than Charlotte Flair money, more than Becky Lynch money, basically, to come back to WWE. At least that was a speculation of what was being reported. We don't know that for sure, but that was what was being reported. And if that's the case, I'm sorry, you're not worth that, sweetie. You're just not. In saying that, you know, it reminds me a lot of The Rock this year. The Rock came back as a face. They immediately turned on him because they wanted Cody to finish the story. They pulled a 360, 1080, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and turned him heel immediately. That's what they need to do with Mercedes Moné. Because she's not fucking over, and Willow actually is over.
Right. I think the reason that Willow is over mostly is because of the fact that they're all jumping on the Mercedes hate train.
100%.
So they're just gonna root for Willow because they don't want to root for Mercedes.
Yeah. The experiment is not working, Tony.
It's not. I think that out of the 3 big signings that he signed, this is going to be his biggest bust.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Yeah. All right. I'm not going to get dragged into this any further. Mr. Ass, again, just great post. I have to say, great post, man. And there's the Willow Nightingale hair at that point. All right, so that's another post. That's another post. I don't know why we're getting so many of these tonight. There we go. Actually, I think this is one that we already read. Yeah, it is. Okay. Keep going. Uh-oh. Stone Cold. Oh, no. So I want to actually make an apology right now. I want to actually apologize to Peculiar Pete. Peculiar Pete had a couple that we read last week. So did Stone Cold Oh No. And I believe it was really Stone Cold Oh No that also had a lot of the Cody hate that we actually referenced by the end.
Yes.
So Peculiar Pete, you still had some pretty bad posts, my guy. But Stone Cold Oh No, so did you. So that does not look like that's the case this week, my guy. So I'm very happy to say that. So this week you posted about 6 hours ago, actually. According to WON, Chuck Taylor's storyline injury is actually legitimate. The belief right now is that Taylor won't be able to wrestle again, with the nature of the injury being likely career-ending. If this is true, did you enjoy his run, or do you think he deserved more of a solid run? Dan, your thoughts.
He won't be fucking missed. At all. He just won't.
Shit.
Like, it just...
Chuck Taylor reminds me of Johnny Gargano. It doesn't matter to me.
It doesn't matter. Like, the best friends... Look, and it's not just me saying this. Again, and it's been well documented that I am a massive toy collector. Okay? And AEW has a figure line. Barely. But they have a figure line. And a couple of years ago, when they first came out, you couldn't find these fucking figures for the life of me. We were fighting. Billy and I were constantly out looking at every little hunt we could find to try to get these things. Ooh, and we couldn't find them. And after about a year or two or so, things have they'd calmed down enough where, okay, like we're able to get the guys that we want and all that stuff. The best friends, Trent and Chuck Taylor, they were fucking peg warming so hard. I put them in the same category as Adam Hangman Page and Eddie Kingston are right now at the
Wow.
They did not move jack and shit as far as figures are concerned. Nobody cared.
I'll give you that, but
nobody cared.
Wow. Okay.
Like, it's just I'm sure he's a nice guy. Sure he is. Like, and I know he's probably going to be working as a producer now, which cool, good for him. I'm glad he's still getting a gig. But no, like just never could get behind those guys at all. Never could get behind the best friends.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm the same boat.
Yeah.
I literally know. Speaking of jack and shit, I don't know jack and shit about them, to be honest. However, I will close out this post or this part and say that Stone Cold Oh No, I like this post. You get people talking with a post like this, so I'm very happy for this post. However, for those that are kind of in that niche of maybe not watching AEW, not knowing everything about AEW, that's the only negative about this post. But overall, like I said, man, like you get people talking with a post like this, so there's no inherent negative here. So I just say let's just keep going. And there's another, Meltzer post. Let's keep going from there. All right, so this is a good one, and I don't know how. I feel like we've talked about this in the past. Ironically enough, this is a post by TJ. Cody has a rule that if he wrestles you 5 times, he gets to steal one of your moves. According to the American Nightmare, the Cody Cutter came from the Os Cutter by Will Ospreay. What moves do you want Cody to steal next? It's an odd question. To be honest, this sounds like a supervillain. I actually posted this from the shoot, by the way. Who wins and steals his enemy's powers? Heel Cody, where you at? So I don't do this very often just because, I want to see if we could find the shoot post that I posted, and I believe I actually just saw it. And, of course, then it closed out on me. Come on. Yep, and there it is. Can't really see it too well, but this over here in the far corner is Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat talking about stealing souls and stealing moves. Figured we'd do a little bit of that. So I just want to say, TJ, again, great post, kind of in the same vein of what we just saw from Stone Cold Oh No. Again, just great post about 2.6 or 2,600 to 2,600, 1,000 reactions, 814 comments, 138 posts. To me, that's a great post, my guy. So great job, Dan. I'm gonna give you one just off the top of my head because we saw it at WrestleMania. A rock bottom. We saw that, even though he has not wrestled The Rock 4 times. We also saw a spear, which could be by a lot of people, but let's be real, he does it because it's Roman Reigns.
Yes.
Are there any other moves that you could think of that you would like to see Cody do?
Oof.
Or steal, as it were, I guess.
Oof. Maybe the superplex into the Falcon Arrow that Seth Rollins does.
Okay.
That'd be pretty cool.
I'd love to see him do the punt then, if that's the case. Even though
you saw him with the Kimura lock, the thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
we saw that
Kimura lock against AJ.
Yeah,
which I was like, oh shit, just do an F5. Like,
yeah,
why not, right? Shit.
Yeah.
But no, I think the figure 4 leg lock probably as well.
Oh, he's done that. He did that.
Yeah, I know.
At 39.
I know he's done that. I'm just surprised. Like, I don't know where exactly he got that from.
Dusty did it every so often.
If he's going by that rule, every so often.
Which I feel like he stole from Flair at that point. But,
yeah, exactly. Maybe bring it out to the pile driver. That'd be sweet.
The old school one, not the Tombstone,
the old
by
school,
the way.
Yeah,
just for those,
the old school pile driver.
Just for those that we're clarifying for.
Yes.
TJ, man, great post.
Great post.
This is a fun one because it's like you can get thinking, and for those, especially those of us that play 2K24, it can be kind of fun to create your own, whether it be Cody Rhodes or obviously any wrestler, or tweak Cody's movesets. You can obviously give them so many moves too, and it's a pretty cool kind of thing to kind of talk about. So great post there by TJ again. So this one is another Mr. Ass one. This was from yesterday, it looks like. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I apologize, Mr. Ass, just looking at the time right now in terms of how much we've actually been recording already.
However, I'm gonna stop after the first sentence. Does anyone actually enjoy Solo Sikoa? The answer is no. I'm just gonna say that now. Dan, yeah, you're shaking your head, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Mr. Ass, I'm reading this as I'm talking, just so you're aware of it. Number one, and those that are watching or listening, it basically comes down to, is this nepotism? Does anybody enjoy him or look forward to his mic skills or his matches or anything? He makes a comment here that I just want to touch on real quick. The truth is that Solo is just a great value version of Umaga. And I actually have to disagree. He's not a great version of Umaga. He's a more versatile version of Umaga. I would make that argument. I just feel that having him in this role that he's currently in with the Bloodline, from being enforcer to quote unquote tribal chief, it does nothing of value to him. It's just, the last sentence here, or last two, I guess, really. Solo belongs in a tough guy role that eventually gets overcome by the conquering babyface. That's his ceiling. I don't necessarily think that's true. Solo is still relatively young, could have a very strong career. It's just the way he's currently booked and presented is not in a good position. It's just not. So Mr. Ass, I apologize for not reading the whole post and more or less paraphrasing it, but he's just, you could stop at the first sentence. Does anyone actually enjoy Solo Sikoa? And the answer is no.
No.
Oh.
No. No one does, I don't think.
Yep. So this one was April 19th. I'm actually going to skip this one. That's a little bit long time ago at this point already. That's a different page. I don't know why we're getting a lot of those today. So this one's more recent. Oh, that's Colt Cabana by David again. Never mind.
Boom, boom.
Anyone like Solo Sikoa? Okay, so then Peculiar Pete from April 24th. Yeah, we're getting a lot further back here. So let's see if we can find one more recent at least, and then we can kind of end the show on that one. This looks recent. Yep, 4 days ago. That's good enough. All right. So this is another post by David, actually. Jerry Lawler is officially no longer with WWE.
Oh yes, I wanted to bring that up. Yeah.
Yep. So I guess that's.
Close it.
I guess so. So this was reported by PW Insider, which is reported that Jerry Lawler's contract has been allowed to expire. It is the end of an era. Feuds with Bret Hart, Taz, Al Snow, and even Michael Cole, calling the Attitude Era alongside good old JR Jim Ross. Safe to say for many WWE fans, I'll just clarify that with, especially those around the Attitude Era, that Jerry Lawler is a part of our childhood. That's why I said Attitude Era. I assume he'd be with WWE until he passed away, but alas, no, it's over. With the exception of part of 2001, Lawler had been with WWE since December of 1992. Maybe Lawler and JR can team up one more time to call a match. Maybe not. Great post, David.
Very good post. Really kind of talking about the legacy that the King has. It's been a really storied career that he's had in the last 30 years with WWE, especially.
I mean, even if you go back before, when we're talking about the territory days from before, talking, so
the man's the king of Memphis for a reason. I mean, he was the guy in Memphis as far as wrestling is concerned. One of the most successful. I wasn't glazing over it. I was just talking about his WWE legacy.
No. I understand. I think it's funny that we talked about the territories earlier with the context of Dark Side of the Ring and Ollie, and then we come to the last post. It's about the King of all people.
I don't think this is I think this is a non-issue only because of the fact. Look, his contract for broadcasting was not renewed. He still has a Legends deal, which allows him to be in WWE video games and also get an action figure merchandising as well. It's a licensing deal. But, everybody's making this to be a big thing, and he had the stroke last year. There's concerns that his speech really hasn't returned to where it needs to be for broadcasting opportunities. So they made a decision.
Off TV for a while, anyways.
I know.
So at that point, does it matter? His primary role at this point was pre-shows.
Pretty much, yeah.
And even then, he hasn't been on the pre-shows in a long time.
No.
I think it's been over a year, if not pretty damn close.
Since the stroke, yeah. He hasn't been on, I think they showed him once, and it wasn't on camera. I think it was pre-show.
Right, yeah.
Or he came out and waved, and so it was on camera because I remember seeing it.
But it wasn't a talking part, is what you're saying.
It wasn't on TV, right? So,
I mean, listen, you talk about a career that has spanned, I would say, generations.
50 years.
Well, that's why I'm saying generations. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back to the territory days in Memphis, and he's feuding with fucking Andy Kaufman.
Yep.
And for those that don't know, he was an actor / comedian. And at the time, he was kind of in the wrestling gig as a gag to wrestle women.
Right.
And back then, I talked about it earlier, just in kind of a passing comment about how gratuitous women wrestling was during the Attitude Era. Right. This was even predating that. And it was a gag. It wasn't serious. And I don't mean women's wrestling. I mean him wrestling women, period, was a gag. And then you had Lawler come out and rough him up. You had him do it on the wrestling show itself, and you had him do it on late night TV. And, Kaufman's sitting there I'm going to sue you, Lawler. And it was magic. I'm going to say it that way. And I remember they had this roundtable discussion, and it was a bunch of them. It was Nash, it was Jarrett, it was a few others, and saying how it blurred that line. And I would almost argue that Lawler at that time was the first to really blur that line with Andy Kaufman.
Oh, yeah, without question. It brought wrestling to the forefront, again, in pop culture, because he's on Letterman. Everybody was talking about the Letterman segment.
Yeah.
They were hearing about it. It was getting some major it was starting to get some major play, as far as the mainstream media is concerned. After they had kind of written wrestling off for the first time since, the 50s and 60s.
Right.
So it was the first time that they kind of got wrestling at the forefront. To think that Vince McMahon Sr. turned Kaufman down and Bill Apter called Lawler and was like, so I got Andy Kaufman here. And, so. Yeah. Kaufman
really
never took a paycheck. He never took a paycheck from Lawler and Jarrett. Never took money at all.
He knew he didn't need to.
Well, he loved it. He loved it. He didn't care. He did.
Yeah, I will say that, and they all the documentaries about that period or that storyline do a pretty good job of painting him as somebody that loved wrestling.
Right.
And I'm glad that it got the justice it deserved in those documentaries, because, as I said, it really was one of those first kind of storylines that blurred that line, especially with somebody who is not a traditional wrestler and is doing it to generate viewership, not only for himself, obviously, but for the industry as a whole. So I always loved that about Andy Kaufman.
because when you watch it back, you're like, oh my God, what a fucking asshole this guy is. Wrestling fucking women, trying to fucking instigate shit with Jerry Lawler. Because again, we've talked about this. This was a period of time where kayfabe was very much still alive.
Yes,
very much still alive, and
you're gonna wrestle me, Mr. Lawler from Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, and he had that one fucking stooge lawyer too, man. Just man, it was just so great. I would advocate anybody that loves wrestling history to go back and watch that feud with Andy Lawler and the King. Jerry, fucking Andy Kaufman. I can't even talk now just thinking about it. It's just such a great feud. And I know, we've talked about this in the past where, wrestling, especially back then, could be a little hokey. But my God, it's just so fucking funny.
Especially
to go back.
Memphis, because they were still, they didn't understand the concept of intellectual properties. They had a Spider-Man wrestler. They had a Mummy wrestler.
Yeah.
They had a Lord Humongous wrestler from the Road Warriors. I mean,
we talked about it too.
Yeah.
Where and unfortunately Ronda Rousey also talked about it, and a few people talked about it. Where Vince McMahon was also falling to that trap in the early 90s of still maintaining these gimmick style of wrestlers. And that was a big thing of wrestling at that time. It just was.
Right.
So Vince still falling in that trap makes a lot of sense because he grew up around that. He bought the company from his dad, so of course he still had a lot of gimmicks. I mean, if you think about it, we've talked about this before when we did our, best WrestleManias of good, bad, and different almost, where, even Sergeant Slaughter is a gimmick. If you think about it, it's just a gimmick that nailed at that time. But this, again, just, you see him on the screen. He's fucking the king of all people, he's Jerry the King Lawler. And honestly, this feud, if nothing else, made him just that.
Oh,
obviously, he was already a star in Memphis anyways. That can't be understated. But this put wrestling on a different level, almost like WWE would go on to do later. And again, as I said, for those that don't know their wrestling history, go back and watch this feud. It is just hilarious. And when I say watch the feud, also watch the late night segment with the two of them. Because it's just that fucking funny. Andy Kaufman at certain points during this whole thing is like, I don't wrestle men! I wrestle women! Go ahead, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I think you could say some of those words on television. But throwing coffee is where I cross the line. Fucking Letterman.
Oh, man. And Letterman helped sell it, too, which made it even funnier. I tolerate a lot of things, but not that.
I tolerate a lot of things, but not throwing coffee.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God. Letterman was such a treat.
He was, especially back then. God, he used to sell shit for them, too, and it was fucking hilarious. All right, my dude. I think we're at the crossroads. Do you want to give out our plugs this week?
Sure. Be sure to listen to us here on YouTube under Diamond Podcast Productions. And also, so you just type in the Shooter Diamond Podcast Productions and you'll be able to like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe for us on YouTube. We're also on Spotify right now, currently, under the Pro Wrestling World Talks channel. We're going to keep going with this. And then we're also available on Apple Podcasts as well. So really, we're coming at you from multiple different angles. And what we were talking about, how we're also on HD radio now, especially. We're on one of these frequencies that don't even exist.
Jesus Christ.
Is Real Player still a thing? Are we on Real Player?
I don't think so. Oh shit, that takes me back. Are we on Kazaa?
God.
Are we on Napster?
Are we on Aries?
Oh shit.
What about LimeWire? What the fuck?
God. Oh man.
So.
You can also catch us on social media, as you see right here, The Pro Wrestling World on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter X. You can also catch us on our private accounts. I don't even remember Dan's whole account to tell him, or mine for that matter. But you can also catch Diamond Podcasting Productions, as Dan said, on YouTube. We're also on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. We have a page there as well. I think we're on Twitter X. Yeah, we are on Twitter X. I think we're on, what was the other thing? TikTok, which we don't even use. So it's just kind of fucking there. So we're there on both.
Well, nobody might be using it in another 8 months. We don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good fucking point. So you can find both Diamond Podcasting Productions and The Shoot on all those platforms that I just mentioned, as well as Pro Wrestling World Talks at The Pro Wrestling World. I love this segment, I have to tell you. I know you mentioned it as we started it. This was fun tonight.
Yes.
We didn't get to shit on as many people, which is always, I feel, a little bit of fun.
Yeah, but you know what? It's okay. There was some good posts that we agreed with this week. So
right, and that makes it a little bit funner. As much as I did love shitting on them last week, I feel like this week I enjoyed not shitting on them for a change.
I was expecting Pete to retaliate. Right. I was expecting.
You know what we're gonna do? Just real quick. Fuck it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do. Come on. Where are we here? Here we are. We're gonna search just real quick. All right. So the only post that pops up for Pete is for the one from April 24th that I said I wasn't gonna read because it's too far back. Yep, and that was the stuffed animal post we read last week anyways, so we're not gonna do that. All right. So just Pete, you are safe for a week, my guy.
Yes.
You were safe this week. Stone Cold Ono, you actually had a good post this week, so you're safe.
You did.
So yeah, I'll end it right there. That's the show. We didn't get to shit on as many people on social media this week, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, all in all, like I said, as Dan mentioned, you can catch the show on all those platforms that he mentioned. You can catch the social media accounts where I mentioned The Pro Wrestling World, Diamond Podcasting Productions, or D Podcasting, I believe, on Twitter X, because it was like, hey, fuck you, too long of a name. And The Shoot Show 1 is where you could find the social media for The Shoot. But for Dan, I'm Mac. I hope everybody had a great time listening or watching or both this show. We had a lot of fun doing it this week. And I hope everybody has a good week / weekend / good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Bye.
Bye.
Boo ran.